completion of some of these projects. As a country, as a government, we are losing a lot of money because of delayed payments to contractors. They incur a lot of penalties. And I can give you one example in Kilifi, which is the Utalii College, the Ronald Ngala Utalii College, where the project has been going on since Kibaki's time. So we've had one president exit, we've had another president complete his entire term, we're on the third president, and we're still dealing with the same institution. And costs are going up because we, as a government, are not fulfilling what we are supposed to pay. Now that college in Utalii is vital to our tourism industry, and it is important that we fund it and finally complete some of those projects as well. Honorable Speaker, the ethnicity, how we saw some of these institutions, that you could see 95% of the staff coming from one community. Honorable Speaker, this is where we start breeding ethnicity from these institutions. Because you can imagine, these institutions are training our 18, 19, 20-year-olds. How do you expect them to behave when they find that the institution they are in has 95% Kikuyus, 95% Luyas, 95% Kalenjins, based on where the universities are, the institutions are placed? It is important, we must make that effort to de-ethnicize these institutions. Finally, Honorable Speaker, I just want to support the issue that my chairman has raised. We noted that our public institutions are going to wither and die if we continue funding, sending money to private institutions. We can talk of even an institution such as Egerton, where we've seen we're going to have a university shut down. These programs, the reason why we started funding private universities, our students in private universities, is because we didn't have the capacity in the public universities. Now we do. Now we can absorb all those students who want to go to public universities. Let us absorb them into public universities and let us fund them in our public universities. With that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to second this motion. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Order, Sirma. Take your seat. Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Public Investments Committee on governance and education on its consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of state corporations, regulatory and governance agencies for the financial year 2018-2019, 2019-2020, 2020-2021, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20th June 2023. Before I give anybody to contribute, allow me to acknowledge the following schools in the Speaker's Gallery: Moi Girls Secondary School, Kibwezi, Kibwezi West, Makueni; Muririkwa Secondary School from Gilgil, Nakuru. I know there are other students in the public gallery, but I've not been given their descriptions yet. We'll acknowledge them when I get it. Now I see the request. I don't know if it's for this motion. Julius Ruto Keses.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Today being a privilege to be the first to be on the floor. Yes. I stand also to support the report that has been presented on the issues of looking at the governance of our independent institutions, our state corporations, much so-called the sagas. And Mr. Speaker, all of us will agree that the knowledge behind creation of these semi-autonomous institutions is to accelerate service delivery to the public or the citizens of the Republic of Kenya. And therefore, as per the constitution of the land, where it gives all the power and mandate to the citizens, and that all these agencies are being brought on board as trustees for the resources of the same citizens, it is noble to agree together with the Auditor General that the state of these particular institutions in terms of governance are wanting. in the sense that it has been used to advance the divergence from the principles of the public finance, the principles of the Constitution of the land of Kenya, where the Constitution is looking at the use of every resource that is available to bring Kenyans together, to advance cohesion among the Kenyans, and to ensure equity is administered to all the Republic of Kenya. I want to support that as this Honorable House, we need to scrutinize this report very candidly and be able to take recommendations from the Auditor General as it is, so that we're able to restore back the discipline, the confidence in the public institutions for the Kenyans. We that we have been entrusted by the same citizens to carry out or to oversight the application of the law equitably should also rise to our mandate and ensure we address specifically and areas which have been mentioned, so that we bring back, we inculcate back to the minds of those few people who have been chosen to run the institutions, so that they run them in accordance with the law and ensure that Kenyans receive their desired service, Kenyans are able to be served equally, so that we are able to bring out a nation that from all corners of the country, they feel the importance of being Kenyans. Otherwise, as it is, and the way the report has put up, especially on matters of recruitment, where you find one public institution, employees from one community. This is the reason as to why Kenyans at times are not together, because they find they don't find the reason as to why. When an investment has been put in a place, it favors specific people from that area. So, Mr. Speaker, from this Honorable House, I stand to support this and say, gone are those times. Let us utilize the Constitution, apply the Constitution of the land to the ladder, so that Kenyans in every place, in every corner, they feel they are part of this country and that they are considered in every little resource it is available. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, we need to enhance the reports from these institutions. At times like this, a challenge that we are receiving is where now the reports of 2-3 years ago are being discussed at the latter now, at this time and moment, when even the applicability has changed. We need to enhance the timely reports given to the Auditor General, and those reports being submitted to this House, being discussed, so that recommendation can be applied now. Because you may realize times have changed, situations have changed. Even if we are looking at an issue, it is now historical, and applicability now may not be that of importance. But I want to call upon that such good reports be brought on time, we discuss as the House, and we move out of this House even through committee and ensure that these things are happening in place. And should ever be somebody or somewhere who is failing to carry on this responsibility, I also want to call upon that in terms of regulations, we improve our recommendations in regulations or in law, so that whosoever given an opportunity to serve in trust, let him serve with uttermost good faith. Anybody knowingly or by negligently abusing his office or power, action should be taken accordingly, so that Kenyans will be able to learn that when you are given an opportunity, use every coin to the latter, use it to the purpose, and ensure you bring out the basic principles of the Constitution, that you are bringing Kenyans together and you are advancing equity and proper use of public resources. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Owen Bayer.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to first congratulate the committee and the chairperson for ensuring that we have a report, the first report of this committee on time. I want to sincerely thank the committee for a good job, well done. Honorable Speaker, it is also very important that oversight committees, especially that deal with reports of the Auditor General, present those reports in this House on time. Because audited reports go a long way to ensure that when we are doing the budgeting, especially for county governments, the amount of money given to county governments depend on audited reports. And therefore, the chairperson and your committee, I want to thank you, because what you have done goes a long way to ensure whether county governments get more money in the next budget cycle or not. So I want to urge all committees and to urge our leader of minority, because a lot of these committees are chaired by the minority side, that you hasten such that we have these audited reports and the reports come to this parliament, so that in the next budget cycle we are able to give counties money. It's a very important thing. So I want to thank this committee, but I also want to urge you to request the other committees that are oversight to bring their reports on time to this House. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, looking at this report, which is basically on education institutions, I want to first thank the committee for flagging out important issues, because it is on record, Honorable Speaker, that a lot of our educational institutions are not very well managed. And it is very important that you flag out these issues so that we can improve. The Presidential Working Party on Education and the report that was tabled actually said a lot of the things that this report has. And this Presidential Working Party report, which was chaired by Professor Munavu, is in a way trying to change the way education is managed. And I think it is in the same spirit that this committee has made its recommendation. So I think there is a dovetailing of ideas, and this is good for the country. But I want to mention specific things. Honorable Speaker, as government, we cannot take the flaks on CEOs whom we have given jobs who are not managing them well. If you are an accounting officer, do your job. And the job is to follow the Constitution, follow the statute, follow the law that is there, and ensure that you manage our educational institutions very well. And that is something that we agree with the minority, that public institutions must be managed well. So there's no excuse for any CEO who has been given mandate to run an organization to say he does not know or understand accounting procedures. That we will not take from any CEO in this country. So if you are there and your manager has actually noticed that some CEOs do not want to submit documents, and therefore they run away from audit. Every CEO in this country, if you're managing an education institution, you must submit yourself to audit, because you are handling government funds, and because you submit yourself to audit. Because you are handling government funds, and because you're handling government funds, you must be audited and be accountable to the public. And therefore, this committee do not ever take an excuse of someone not submitting to audit because of late submission of documents. That CEO must be censured, and we are ready as government to censure such a CEO. We do not want CEOs who will not submit themselves to audit. Honorable Speaker, another finding which I find interesting is that still, institutions who are putting up huge buildings in land which has no titles, and yet that is a government institution. If you are a government institution, the law is very clear. You must invest on land which belongs to government. Where are they investing on land which does not have a title deed? Such a CEO is not doing this government justice. Supposing someone comes and claims that land and a government building has to be brought down, that CEO must take responsibility for such a thing. So I would like to ask you as chairperson, as you make these recommendations, I agree with you that CEOs of educational institutions must henceforth comply with Section 68 of the PFM Act, ensure that we have all government documentation. Institutions which do not have title deed to land must ensure that they get titles to that land. Honorable Speaker, an interesting observation here, that a government institution has been constructing a building for 37 years. 37 years, they are constructing one building. Either we do not have a CEO who is dependable or reliable, or actually this CEO does not know his work. How do you construct a building for 37 years? And what they do is they always vary costs every year. And probably they are doing that, they're delaying the completion of that building for their own purpose. Honorable Speaker, I have looked at the recommendations from the committee, and I think this is a very lenient recommendation. You should have been more drastic about that, because the costs keep on going up. Initial cost was probably 5 million, now probably it is 100 million, just because someone does not want to complete that building. We want to say as government, if you be given a job, you start a project, it must be completed on time so that you save taxpayers pain. Honorable Speaker, I want to speak on the last one, expensive consultancies. You know, some of the universities that we have personnel who actually can provide consultancy at a reasonable fee. They are professors, they are engineers, they are doctors. They are people who have knowledge within a university. But the vice chancellor or the CEO of that organization will go out there and look for his friends and procure a consultancy at a very exorbitant cost just because they want to corrupt the system. But I want us, as government, our aim is to reduce cost of construction, to reduce expenditure. And I want to ask CEOs who are there, and I want this report index them. We do not want expensive consultancies for the sake of just having consultancies. Honorable Speaker, I want to finally say that skewed ethnic diversity within institutions is across board in many of our parastatals, in many of our organizations. And I want to urge those that have been given the mandate to ensure that we project the face of Kenya in employment so that the institutions do not reflect ethnicity of where they come from. A university, NEC, National Council for Science, the TVETs, they should reflect the face of Kenya. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to agree with this report, and I want to thank the committee for a good job well done, and I want to thank you for fast-tracking the many years of the reports that you have done, and on time bring this report. I thank the committee, and I wish that they continue with a good job to audit and hold government account. We ask that we be held to account as a government. And I want to ask the minority, that is your job, that is your role. Do your job. Stop going to the streets. Criticize us here in the House, and we'll appreciate that job, and we'll move this country forward. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Kamukunji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. I want to commend and thank the chairman for the report. And indeed, it's a very ugly and a disturbing report on the status of our national organizations. And I think this is an important moment for Parliament to make sure that the recommendation of this particular report is implemented, and we follow up and support the recommendations of this particular report, because this is a widespread problem in many of our national organizations. There is impunity, there is an abuse of power, there is mismanagement, there is enormous looting and theft of public resources. There's a lot of wastage in many of these government departments, and sometimes you wonder how this country can continue like that. Sometimes you're amazed by the resilience of this particular country in the light of this kind of impunity that gets away without punishment. And many of these officials know that they can walk away tomorrow and go back to their homes without paying the penalty of mismanagement and corruption. And that's why when you go around, you see a lot of institutions that are falling apart. You would see a lot of projects that are not being implemented. And you see a lot of resources going to private consultancies for jobs that can be done by established government departments and institutions that are better equipped and more knowledgeable than many of these consulting agencies. And therefore, it is the responsibility of this Parliament, and it's important that this committee has brought these ills to our attention, that we take it very seriously and we give them all the support that they require. And this particular committee should not rest on its laurels and say, we have done our job, we have submitted our report. They should follow it up consistently and regularly to make sure that, in fact, change comes to these institutions. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to be wasting taxpayers' money. We'll continue to see corruption everywhere. For example, I'm in the National Cohesion and Equal Opportunities Committee. Every state corporation is in violation of the Constitution on the issues of equity, equality, and equal opportunities. Even the organizations that were established after the 2010 Constitution are violators. They are serial violators. They continue to have a large number of a small section of our communities. They continue not to employ people with disabilities. They continue to have gender disparity. These things are not acceptable because our Constitution specifically speaks out very clearly on the need for equal opportunity. And somehow these institutions seem to think that they're immune and there would be no punishment. This carefree attitude is a culture that is well spread in many of the national institutions that we have in our country that have come to this committee to present their reports. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, I would like to support this particular report and encourage the work of this particular committee. We should make sure, or commit this particular committee, and we must make sure that we punish the violators. We take action against institutions that are violating the Constitution, and we use our money prudently so that our country can take the necessary steps and develop and prosper. Thank you so much, and I support the report.
Honorable members, before I give the next speaker, allow me to acknowledge the following schools in the public gallery: Makanyanga Secondary School, Chuka Igambangombe, Tarakaniti; Maryland Primary School from Mgwen, Nandi; Kaptirion Secondary School from Baringo Central, Baringo. Meli, you can take the opportunity to welcome the students as you go to your contribution.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to join the queue with other members in welcoming the students to the House to check on the proceedings. I know this is part of learning, and as Chair of Education, I want to commend the schools, the students, and the teachers for taking time out to come and show the students how Parliament works, and this is part of the civics or part of history and government. Honorable Speaker, I rise to, first of all, commend the Chair of PIC, Governance and Education, and more specifically, Honorable Speaker, the wisdom of the House in splitting Public Investment Committee. In last Parliament, Honorable Speaker, it was quite tedious, it was quite voluminous, that this House could not oversight a number of government agencies because of the volume of work. I want to commend you, Honorable Speaker, and the leadership of the House, more specifically on the splitting of PIC into various governance bodies, energy, education, and the likes. Honorable Speaker, as a Chair of Education, I want to commend the Chair of PIC, Governance and Education. If you look at the issues that he has raised, it is quite commendable. That one, a number of government institutions or parastatals are actually not following, especially the PFM Act. And as the Majority Whip has just put it, it is not in order. And this government does not support inept officers, officers who are not going to follow government procedures. And His Excellency the President has rightly put it, that he wants a government that delivers. He wants a government that holds officers to account. Yes. Let's take, for example, the Kenya National Examination Council building. It was started way back in 1986. Yes. Majority of the members of parliament who are here were not yet born. And up to today, it is not yet complete. This speaks about corruption, ineptitude, and in fact, all the CEOs that have served in the Kenya National Examination Council all through have not been able to complete. We want actually this House to hold those officers to account. We give them funds, and they have to give timelines on when to complete those particular structures. Honorable Speaker, Public Works is a government agency that always has actually been going to bed with many of these officers. Every other time, a building which is supposed to cost 500 million has been varied until it is now about 3 or 4 billion. If you go to KICD, if you go to Examination Council, if you check even in the state universities, this is a very big problem. And I want to ask the Committee on Public Accounts, Public Investment, Education and Governance to really go down. As a chair of education, we allocate resources. We want value for those resources. A building that was established, I want to pick a case in Moi University, where we have a building that is what is called a science complex that was what was started way back in 1990s. Up to today, it is not yet complete. If you go there, Honorable Speaker, you'll realize it has costed the taxpayer over 200 million, but nothing to show. That is one amongst many other public universities. And I want to ask the chair that we really need to move with speed to make sure that there is the mwananchi that voted, that is going to pay taxes, is going to smile all the way to these public institutions, saying, surely, this is the government that I voted for. This is the government that I wanted to be in place. So officers are supposed to be held to account. They are supposed to be responsible. And in fact, where an officer has failed to give documents to show how he has used the funds, and even the ethnicity, the gender, this is one country, one nation, one people. These people are supposed to be employed across board. And I think the president has been in the forefront on this, to make this country a tribeless nation. A nation where you don't get to know who is so-and-so who is the CEO. You need to have the services of that particular individual. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, on the issue of consultancies, this is where lots of funds have been lost, where you get institutions such as universities, for example, seeking outside consultancies, yet they themselves are actually having technical officers. It defeats logic that you get a university consulting with individuals outside at maybe a rate of 3 or 4 times, yet they have better consultants within the institution, which they would have actually cut the cost. So, Honorable Speaker, I'll rise to support and say that we really need to do more on this to make sure that there is value for money. We make sure that the resources that the government has put in place, actually the citizens are going to enjoy. And I want to ask that, Honorable Mambonga, you've done a good job, and this is the best job you can do, not actually going to the streets and throwing stones, but you can actually critique the government like that. Thank you so much.
Member for Westlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me a chance to speak on this report. And first, I want to congratulate the committee for having gone through the reports for the financial years up to 2020, 21, I think. Mr. Speaker, listening to the chair as he was moving the report, it just explains public wastage. Wastage in public service and all that, Mr. Speaker. How can a building be constructed for over 30 years, one building in one institution, and there are many others, white elephants in ministries and everywhere? We need to look why are we still pumping money in such institutions, and we still find that every year, every financial year, there's money allocated to such functions. We need to examine this and audit these corporates, state corporates, to make sure that the funds, the taxpayers' money does not go to waste. Second, Mr. Speaker, the face of Kenya in state corporates, we find that most state corporates, if they're headed by a person from a particular community, staff will be from that particular community mostly. And also, people with disability, we have seen appointment after appointment, and we are not seeing people with disability being given a consideration. Yet the law is there, the law is clear. The law says about 5% of public service should be reserved for people with disability. And we hope that going forward, we shall find a better way of a placement. I remember a friend of mine, Mr. Speaker, who had applied for a job in one of state corporates, and when he arrived with proper qualification and everything, and he was told that this job was not for people like you. So he demanded to know why, and he brought the case to me, and I approached the minister then, Mr. Speaker, and the minister ordered the committee to interview the man, and he was given the job. So we feel that these public corporates, they should be responsible enough. The people who are appointed to those positions and are given public funds, they should make proper usage of the funds so that they are accountable, and they must always account with, it doesn't matter who you are. Once you are in that position, managing public funds, you must be responsible enough and be accountable for every cent that is given to that institution. Otherwise, they must face the music. Anyone who has squandered the funds or used the funds properly, not properly, they must be, Mr. Speaker, taken to book to account. I also want to encourage the committee that they must come up with recommendations that can put sanctions on some of those people who are taking, who are employing corruption in these public state function corporates, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, I want to say that I support the report, and I'm just worried about how the funds are being used, especially if one institution can take over 30 years. 30 years. We just want to know how much money has been sunk in such an institution. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Francis Segei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also ventilate on this very important report. Mr. Speaker, I am a member of this committee. And I want on the onset, Mr. Speaker, to thank our chairman, who has presented the report very well. And Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the chairman, particularly on the way he interrogates on issues when we are in the committee. And Mr. Speaker, I want to report here also that last week we had one of the institutions which came to us, and we are making some serious legal action. We are almost arresting that person. But Mr. Speaker, we had to follow the law because things in these institutions are going haywire. Mr. Speaker, the universities are dying. And Mr. Speaker, the audit reports which we have received in these universities are terrible. And Mr. Speaker, I thank this committee because we have moved and we have been going to the regional offices to interrogate on these people. In fact, we went to Central Province, Mr. Speaker, and the vice chancellors and leaders of those TVET institutions were unable to report because they were not ready. So, Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of problems. First of all, audit reports are very far behind, and we would like to ask the government to really assist this committee so that it can move forward and make some issues known. Ethnicity. Ethnicity, Mr. Speaker, is like cancer. We saw in many institutions, from the top to the lowest staff, are from one ethnic group. And Mr. Speaker, we must now move forward and look at these issues, because how can we have one Kenya, when an institution is only employing one tribe? So we are very serious as a committee. And Mr. Speaker, what we realized in these institutions is that these people who are leading, the vice chancellors and the managers of these institutions, are either incompetent or they are corrupt. Mr. Speaker, we found one area which is the area of variation in the construction of buildings in this place. We found one institution had to make a variation of 146 million. And we were shocked. And Mr. Speaker, we are moving as a committee. we are making serious recommendations. And very soon, if this House can implement those recommendations, we'll see our institution changing in future. One other thing which we also discussed and which the chairman has simply mentioned is the issue of funding private universities. This committee is the one which brought this issue out, and now the government has taken action to stop funding of private universities from public. And we are very sure, Mr. Speaker, that very soon our public universities will enroll many students, because now the people who are poor can be able to take their children there. Mr. Speaker, I also want to talk about public works. Public works, Mr. Speaker, is a government institution, but it's a problem, because people have now gone to the consultants, because what we have seen in public works is the issue of variation, and which people are making money, minting money in these institutions. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to also to talk about the land problem which we saw in these universities. In fact, in one of the institutions in Nairobi here, the land which belongs to the institution has been grabbed by individuals. And Mr. Speaker, I want to assure you that with the chairman in the seat and the able members, we have serious members in that committee, and we have resolved that we are going to make these people uncomfortable in wherever they are. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support this report and tell you that we, as a committee, we are moving forward, and we are going to have people taken to court in no distant future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support the report.
Thank you, Honorable Sigai. Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me also join my colleagues in really thanking the committee led by Honorable Kwamboka for this good report, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think this is the first report we are getting from the peak committees, and it's the first report coming from the side of the opposition in terms of oversight committees, other than the ones we have been doing for public debt and privatization. So we really want to appreciate the work of the committee. And Honorable Speaker, listening to the report, the presentation of the report, and listening to the immediate speaker, in terms of what they think as a committee and what is written here, Honorable Speaker, I think the committee has been very lenient in terms of recommendations. Actually, Honorable Sigei, what you are saying, I wish it was in the report, where you are saying you want to act very tough, but the report seems to be very lenient in terms of recommendations. And Honorable Speaker, this being an oversight report, it is important that we start cracking the whip. Honorable Speaker, when you look at some of the general observations in terms of what is happening in these sagas, and more so sagas in the education sector and governance sector, Honorable Speaker, you note that these are sagas which are doing what you call social activities in the country. Actually, education is is more of a public good, so we don't expect these sagas to give us dividends at the end of the year because they are supporting social activities, but we expect them to operate within the law. For example, Honorable Speaker, when in this house, in the 21st century, we hear that the first observation is all these sagas which were audited, there was an observation of poor accounting standards. Poor accounting standards, Honorable Speaker. When this country has the best brains in terms of accounting profession, Honorable Speaker, and second to that, Honorable Speaker, accounting is one of the areas where, or the disciplines where, things have been standardized. So this can only be explained by two things, Honorable Speaker. The first one is a situation where the CEOs deliberately decide not to prepare their accounts. The second one is tied to one of the recommendations of the Speaker, where instead of hiring competent people, they end up hiring relatives who might not be having the right papers, Honorable Speaker. And on that note, Honorable Speaker, I would have expected the committee to come up with a very clear recommendation saying that such as CEOs who could not do proper accounting, Honorable Speaker, are not worthy being CEOs in this country in the 21st century. The second area, Honorable Speaker, is the area of delayed submission of accounting documents, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, anytime we interact with the Auditor General, there has been a strong feeling that even the 3 months allowed in law, that after 3 months after the end of the financial year, the accounting officer should be able to submit the document to the Auditor General. There is a strong feeling, Honorable Speaker, that this should be reduced to 2 months. Why is that the case? This is the case because these accountants, Honorable Speaker, and every ministry and these sagas have accountants who are qualified, keep on preparing these documents throughout the year. So by close of the financial year, there is no good reason why they require 3 months to consolidate their accounts. 2 months should be enough so that we allow the Auditor General more time to prepare the accounts. So, Honorable Speaker, when you look at some of these observations, I think this committee, for now, this being the first report, we can understand. But I think as we move to the future, Honorable Speaker, and all other reports which are going to come from this oversight committees, Honorable Speaker, we need to be very firm as a House in terms of what we are recommending, so that we send the right signal to these accounting officers who think they can play around with the resources from the public and do whatever they want to do. And Honorable Speaker, more specifically, when this country is struggling now to even meet the basic requirements of a country, Honorable Speaker, this is the time we must make sure that every single cent is actually going to the intended place, Honorable Speaker. The other thing, Honorable Speaker, which is coming out is the issue of these consultancies, Honorable Speaker, that consultancies are costing more than the actual cost of the project. You know, you can't, and some of us who have background in program management, you can't understand where a consultant becomes more expensive than the cost of the project itself. You can't explain, Honorable Speaker. So to me, I think these are cases where those who are involved in such a case should be finding their way either to the courts or should be investigated by the investigating bodies like EACC and other bodies like the DCI, so that we get to know really what is happening, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, I want to say the following, Honorable Speaker, that the issue of skilled employment in this parastatus, Honorable Speaker, is very common. Actually, Honorable Speaker, you will not be surprised to find some of them in their senior meetings. They can actually conduct meetings in their vernacular, because you find everybody in those senior positions comes from the same ethnic grouping, Honorable Speaker. When this country, we say we have 45 different ethnic groupings, Honorable Speaker. And we also keep on saying our constitution demands that there should be regional balancing. So, Honorable Speaker, to me, these are issues which are really issues which are very important and we should be discussed by this House, so that as a House, Honorable Speaker, we don't become a lamenting house where we are only full of lamentations every day. This is not working. And we appear like we are a toothless dog, Honorable Speaker. I think this House has what it takes to act on some of these officers to make things sure that things are being done correctly. And I'm happy when I hear the majority whip saying he is ready to crack the whip so long as the report recommends so. So it is our work as a minority side to make sure that we make these recommendations. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, I want to say this. Even as a House, Honorable Speaker, we have a big role to play. And I always believe, Honorable Speaker, these audit reports will be taken seriously in this country. The time will start tying audit reports to budgeting process. So that, Honorable Speaker, if any CEO or even accounting officer has audit queries, we make sure that the budget is reduced to a level that they must answer those audit queries before we give them more money. So if we tie these two reports, audit report and budget making process, Honorable Speaker, this House will become more effective in terms of doing our work. And this can only be done, Honorable Speaker, if we also ensure that in terms of timing, like now this report is up to 2021 financial year, Honorable Speaker. But, Honorable Speaker, we have 2021/2022, we have 2022/2023, and very soon we'll be having 2023-24. So you can see we still have areas of about 2 years.
So if you really want to tie budgeting with auditing, we must make sure that the auditing reports, Honorable Speaker, are in this House in a timely manner, and this House makes resolutions in a way that this can inform the budget process, Honorable Speaker. With this matter remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support the report. Thank you.
Geoffrey Ruku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this report and to congratulate my friend Wamboka for a very good job well done through his committee. Mr. Speaker, the university education is a very key aspect of this country. Our nation spends a lot of money to education, whether it is basic education, secondary education, as well as university education. And we have experienced senior members of our government, well, in the previous government, trying to construct policies which they favor private individuals. And that is actually an economic crime, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we realize we have anti-corruption authority. We call it Anti-Corruption and Economic Crime Act. But it is rarely that we see economic crimes being prosecuted in our courts. Because there's no way we can get taxpayers' money and we channel that money to private entities, and those private entities are not sharing the profits with the public. We have seen private universities getting huge amount of money, and it's because there is serious collusion in the Ministry of Education, where we have senior Ministry of Education officials who have been pocketed by the people who own private universities in our nation. We have to say this in a day broad right, Mr. Speaker. And those senior people who have been pocketed in the Ministry of Education, they are known. And those who private owners of universities, they are known. So it is a very good way of doing business using public money. You come up with a private university, you go to a government entity, get public money, and use that money to do business in a private university. Mr. Speaker, this is something which cannot be around in our nation. It is either you do business using public money and that the profit you make, you remit that profit to the public as well. This has happened, and we should condemn that with the strongest terms possible. And those who are at the Ministry of Education, who have run down our higher education system, they should be called and serious action be taken. I would even request the committee, the chair of the committee, to go further and recommend with clarity the people who are engaged in this kind of activities. We cannot. Our public universities have been going down because we cannot be able to finance them. Moi University, Egerton University, University of Nairobi, and other many universities. But we have money to channel in private institutions owned by private people. It is a disgrace. We should be condemned, Mr. Speaker. As well as when it comes to the CEOs of our public entities, they have to make value for money, whether it is in all industries we have, to ensure the common man benefit from the activities of the government. This has to change, Mr. Speaker. And I know Kenya Kwanza government, Mr. Speaker, it is not in business of protecting anybody who is not toeing the line, who is not doing justice to the public. So if the opposition, I see the opposition has been able to see the right at the end of the day, that is what you are supposed to do. Please continue with what you are doing, and we will support you, even if we are in this side of the house, because Kenyans have to get value of what the government is implementing using their money. Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I support this report and recommend further investigations to be done by this committee so that we can have a concrete way forward, so that we can change the culture. This nation can be able to change within a span of 10 years, and we will be a nation like many other nations in the world which are undeveloped. But we have condoned bad practices again and again. It has to stop, and that is the work of this side of the House, and we will support you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Give me Honorable Dr. James Nyikal. But Honorable Nyikal, before you have the mic, I would like to recognize the following schools in the public gallery. And some Pioneer Primary School from Bomet East constituency, Bomet County, Holy Rosary Girls, Ortum, Pokot South constituency in West Pokot County, and Juri High School, Chuka-Igamang'ombe constituency in Tharaka-Nithi County. On my own behalf and on behalf of the Speaker of National Assembly, you are welcome to observe the proceedings in the House. Honorable Dr. Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity.
Order, Honorable Doris Donya. Honorable Doris Donya, I know the uniform of Tabaka School.
You can see there are many in the gallery.
I can assure
pink
you.
Pink and blue.
I've not yet seen them. Immediately I recognize them.
They were actually being shown at the screen in pink and blue.
So there is no problem. No. They are behind me.
They are behind you.
I will recognize them. I will recognize them, and I will welcome them to the House. Don't worry, Honorable Doris Donya.
Will I say something before they go home? Let me do it because they are there. You know, Mr. Speaker, a girl's school.
After I recognize them, you will. I know that is your school, Honorable Doris Donya. And the girls would want to see you sit in the place they'll sit on in future. Honorable Dr. Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this report. And I must start by appreciating the wisdom of splitting the investment committee into the three committees, one of which is looking at the sagas under the Ministry of Education. And Mr. Speaker, may I also take this opportunity to appreciate the work that has been done by this committee. Mr. Speaker, these are sagas that for a long time we have never discussed them on the floor of this House. We don't seem to have recognized how important they are. But Mr. Speaker, if you look at these institutions, all our efforts in education will go to nothing if we do not strengthen these institutions. Mr. Speaker, look at the Kenya Institute for Curriculum Development. It does not matter how much money we put in education, if the curriculum development and curriculum implementation and monitoring is not done properly, it will come to none. And who can do that other than the Institute for Curriculum Development? Mr. Speaker, look at NACOSTI, the National Commission for Science, Technology and Innovation. We are putting a lot of emphasis on STEM now. We are putting a lot of emphasis on a competence-based curriculum. But Mr. Speaker, without research that NACOSTI is leading in, all this will be of no value. Without harnessing science and technology, we are not really going anywhere, even with the new curriculum. Mr. Speaker, look at the Council for Legal Education. You are a lawyer. Without this council, Mr. Speaker, we cannot have advocates in this country practicing as they should. And Mr. Speaker, look at the TVET authority. We are all emphasizing the issue of TVETs. And we have this authority that is actually to guide us on how we should develop them, how we should relate them to our industries. And it is this authority that will do that. And we've never really discussed them here. Look at for Commission for University Education. Mr. Speaker, how will you have university education? You have universities, we say some are dying, but we never talk about Commission for University Education. It never comes before us. even during the budget, you never really hear much of them. Mr. Speaker, look at COOPS. That is the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Services. We are just through the process of actually placing students in universities and colleges, and it has brought out a lot of problems on how to place students in which institutions. That is an extremely important institution. You can look at the Kenya National Examination Council. Mr. Speaker, if we are not looking at Kenya National Examination Council, if we do not support it, if we do not make sure that it can actually oversight and give credible results, look at what happened before the Matiang'i Magoha process, which actually told us that a large number of the students that were assumed to have passed, that had A's, actually had fake A's. And with that realization, when they actually streamlined, the number of students that qualified for university education went down until we have to reduce colleges. And that is why we started private colleges, which are now competing because we are now getting the correct students with the correct number of colleges. So, Mr. Speaker, these are important. Look at Higher Education Loans Board. Mr. Speaker, we have all been saying that we are spending more money in private universities instead of public universities. We had fake students and a large number for universities. Now when we have properly tested students, we have fewer students. And so there's competition between the public universities and private universities. And so we now know we have to put more money in our public universities. So, Mr. Speaker, these institutions are extremely important. Look at the university enterprise institutions like UNES. Universities must be able to actually take part in some commercial activities, even as part of their training. And if they cannot do that, Mr. Speaker, we really have to support them. So, Mr. Speaker, if you look at this, and there are actually 23 of them, I've only mentioned about 10. And these are institutions that before this committee was in place, the division of the Invest Committee into 3, we never heard about them. Even when we are vetting people, we never hear people coming, their names coming here for vetting. Maybe they come, we don't show interest. And yet, they are key in our educational development and actually the economy of the country, if you look at this institution. And Mr. Speaker, look at the report we are getting about them. Poor accounting standards. And we are told that sometimes when this committee was going, they were not even able to report, which means these people have not been oversighted at all. They have actually been never supervised. And we are told, Mr. Speaker, that most of their institutions are just one ethnic group depending on where they are. Obviously, if there is no oversight, proper oversight, the CEOs will actually employ people around and see it as an entity which they can use. Mr. Speaker, we are told that the accounting officers are ignorant of the Public Finance Management Act. How can we have such important institutions run by people who are ignorant? And how did they get those jobs? Again, it is our vetting. So that we have not put emphasis on these institutions. The committee has recommended training, but I think we should also look at the process of recruiting these officers. We have been told that they are not even sure of when compliance with the PFMA timelines. They don't know when to report, do accounting reports. Mr. Speaker, this is speaking volumes. That the institutions they have, they don't even know about the aligned titles for those institutions. And Mr. Speaker, if you look what comes out, it's actually to an extent we have neglected these institutions. And I think this committee has done a good job. Now we are told they have stalled projects. National Examination Council, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. We are talking of
years when projects have not been completed and a lot of money have gone. But every year we had a Public Investment Committee giving reports. How come this one not coming to us? Every year we have a budget process, Mr. Speaker. How come the budget process was not picking these stalled projects? We have a Public Accounts Committee. How come these stalled projects were not being picked by these committees? To some extent, we have actually let these institutions down. And Mr. Speaker, if we do that, then all the money we are spending in education is being wasted. These are the institutions, the sagas that support the education system. And Mr. Speaker, I then realized that there are actually two main issues in my view. We actually have not oversighted them properly, and I can understand also the parent ministry. These are important sagas. They have so many. They are 20-something, and they have others. So I really can appreciate that the Ministry of Education maybe was overburdened. But now splitting the committee has brought this matter forward, and we can therefore look at it. So poor funding, that was again a sign of ignorance. Poor human resource, that's a serious management issue. And very many of them are in one ministry. So, Mr. Speaker, I am supporting this. For now, I think the report is a bit lenient. I think it has brought issues that to a large extent will not be the accounting officers, but the overall oversight capacity, even us as Parliament, and also the ministry. I know Honorable Meli in the Education Committee is a very capable person. I think he'll support these sagas so that they can deliver what we need for this country. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support this report. Thank you.
Honorable Robert Bui.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. First and foremost, I want to thank the committee because they have done basically these audit reports for 23 institutions, and I'm reliably informed that they have actually done 96 institutions. 23 are the first ones, the rest are coming, and they'll be tabling these reports. And that shows basically an excellent job and good oversight, because this is one of the oversight committees of the House. Mr. Speaker, these reports are for 3 years, and I know that we need to fast track up to the recent, the last financial year, but I'm sure this committee is up to the task. I also want to thank Parliament in their wisdom of splitting this committee into 3, because when you look at the amount of workload, it means basically that when this work was being done by one committee, it was not possible to be able to do justice to all these reports and be able to present them on time. And so basically, by splitting the committee into 3, we have actually made Parliament more efficient, and that is, quite a commendable issue. Mr. Speaker, the main issue here, and the main observations made by the committee, is that there seems to be elements of corruption. And, corruption has been one of those songs that we have sung for the longest period. In fact, corruption is a song that cost lives of members of Parliament in this House years ago, just after independence, because there are those who do not want to hear people talk about corruption, because there are some who benefit strongly out of corrupt practices. Mr. Speaker, the 4 main issues that have come up. The first one is when you hear that some of those auditors in these institutions would delay responding to audit queries. Mr. Speaker, what that basically means to me is that when an audit query is raised and it takes longer, inordinately longer than normal to be able to respond, it probably means that these individuals are taking time to cook figures. And Mr. Speaker, that is really one of those very telling signs of people that are changing figures so that they can be able to pass the audit. So, Mr. Speaker, we must follow the law, and any time an audit query is raised, it must be answered quickly. But we also want to caution the Auditor General not to rush to publicize and to print out the audit queries, because every time there's an audit query, there's always an answer. He should be waiting till he gets the responses to the queries, then he can now be able to present the responses, and where they are unable to defend themselves, then that is what goes out there. Mr. Speaker, the second issue is the issue of ethnicity, and this seems to be a major problem. Mr. Speaker, it is not just in these state corporations that this problem is occurring. It is also at the national level, Mr. Speaker, because after the last election, and you know, inclusivity, which is one of the issues that we as Azimio are raising when we are having the talks with our counterparts, inclusivity is one of the values and principles of Article 10 of our Constitution, which says that every corner of the country, every ethnic group must be involved in governance of this nation. And Mr. Speaker, when you find an institution where people that are operating there, all the top leadership, is from one ethnic community in this country, that obviously smacks of corruption, that is nepotism, and that is against the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. And Mr. Speaker, none other than the Deputy President himself told us that Kenya is a company limited by shares, and that only those that voted for Kenya Kwanza will be able to benefit from the largesse of the government. Mr. Speaker, that means development, that means opportunities of employment. Mr. Speaker, that is why we have a problem, because we always get leadership that believes that when you win an election, then you have to benefit only your people and not the whole country. We must find a way to unite the country. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is the issue of projects taking too long, projects taking forever.
What is order, Honorable Owenbye?
It's not in my place to stop my counterparts in the minority, but you see, when he makes statements that are not, that are a figment of his imagination, that are not factual, we need to stop him in his tracks. The Deputy President was very clear about what he said, and he has clarified in many times that as long as you are a Kenyan, you are a shareholder in this country, and therefore you are entitled to all and sundry to the benefits of a government, and therefore to say things about the Deputy President and shares, I think you didn't hear properly. As long as you are a Kenyan, you are a shareholder in this government, and you have an opportunity to benefit. I thank you.
In fact, it was a point of information and correction. So, Honorable Mbui, proceed. Don't contradict your counterpart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will not go and put words in the Deputy President's mouth, because he spoke and we all heard. Mr. Speaker, the third issue is the issue of projects taking forever to be concluded. Now, there are several things that occur, because I hear, like the Kenya National Examination Council building that has taken 37 years. Several things that will happen. One is that if it takes too long, there are penalties that are constantly charged for the delays. And obviously, that means that by the time this project is finished, it is many times over in terms of the price. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, is that, you know, under the current regime, if this project was being managed in this manner, it would be relaunched like 6 times, Mr. Speaker, because, you know, I've realized that when a project takes too long, we can relaunch it over and over and over again. Maybe I would propose that Kenya Kwanza goes and relaunches this project that has taken 37 years, and hopefully maybe now it can be completed, because it has taken forever, Mr. Speaker. It has taken too many years. And let me say, it's not just here. We've also seen the parliamentary office under PSC. I mean, this building started ages ago. Members of parliament are still squeezing in another house. So we need to ensure that when we start a project, we finish it. But Mr. Speaker, I think we may have an opportunity to make some changes in law. The Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act is very clear that if you're giving a contract, then you also have to have the money to be able to complete it. Now, what I think where the lacuna is that even under CDF, you're able to give a contract which gives a part of the project, and then you have the money available for that part only. Mr. Speaker, I think we must find a way to ring fence so that any contract given, there must be money that will be pumped into that department or that ministry for the number of years required for the project to continuously be done until completion. Because every time we do this, then Kenyans don't get value for money. But Mr. Speaker, as the project is told, when it is 37 years incomplete, there are people who have made billions out of these projects. Consultants, contractors, you know, the banks. So, Mr. Speaker, I think it's one of those things that we need to address in a sober manner. Mr. Speaker, the issue of land that is not secured is also a major problem in the education sector. And it is very unfortunate because this is one of the areas where land grabbers will take advantage. You had cases here in last parliament of land to do with some institution, a learning institution, I think in Ruaraka. We also had another one where some individuals were attempting to grab land for a primary school in Langata. In fact, the children of Langata were beaten and tear-gassed, Mr. Speaker, just like we are being tear-gassed every day when we are following the Constitution. So, Mr. Speaker, sometimes I ask myself, when mistakes occur, why don't we get to the bottom of it so that they don't recur again? If I ask anyone here what happened to the children of Langata Primary, what happened to the perpetrators of the violence against the children of Langata Primary because someone was attempting to grab the land that the children used as a playing field, no one will give you an answer. So, Mr. Speaker, we must, every time we have an opportunity as a House, we must get to the bottom of it. We must get a solution. Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to just say that ESCC, the DCI, the DPP are paid taxpayers' money. They are independent institutions. They have a mandate that is clearly spelled out in the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. It is so unfortunate that every time you follow these institutions, some of them believe that they have to answer to other offices. And that is why you saw immediately after the last election, individuals who had criminal cases, who had civil cases, who had corruption cases, were dropped because of holding public office. Mr. Speaker, I think as a country, we must call a spade, and it doesn't matter which side of the political divide we are. I think Kenya is bigger than all of us. We must correct the ills of this country, and every time we get opportunity as members of parliament, irrespective of whether you are on the side of government or on the side of opposition, all of us have a mandate. We were elected to ensure that we oversight this government, we represent our people, and we make laws for posterity. So, Mr. Speaker, I support that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Robert Mbui. Let me, before I recognize the next speaker, recognize and welcome the following institutions to Parliament. St. Mary's Tabaka Girls from South Mugirango, Kisii County, Pilgrims Progressive School from Mavoko constituency in Machakos, and Juri High School, Chuka Ingamangombe, in Tharaka Nithi County. Honorable Doris Donja, I want to give you a minute to welcome all those institutions to the House of Parliament before we proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, I'm so excited for our daughters and sons who are here. More especially, I come from Kisii County. I've seen Tabaka Boarding Primary, Mr. Speaker. What's about this visit is that the learners learn things that will stay with them for the rest of their lives. When you come to Nairobi for the first time, Mr. Speaker, if you can remember, it's something that you will never forget. Tabaka Girls Fraternity and our other pupils on board, please learn that you can also be members of parliament, enjoy the stay. When they tell you that you are our future leaders, it's true, you are, and that is when you aim high. So I will meet you before you travel back to Kisii, and I know we will interact more. I'm just excited, Mr. Speaker. You can see how I'm free, and the fact that we are discussing about institutions, they will learn more because this is also happening. Like now, Mr. Speaker, they are believing that when they go to university, the government will pay their school fees. You see what is going around, that you have to pay a fee of up to 360,000. As leaders, we must do something because most of our learners will drop out of school because of the exorbitant bills that they'll be asked to pay. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Doris Nonya. I know given a chance, you'd have spoken the entire afternoon because of your excitement on matters education. And the students are actually well welcomed to the House of Parliament, particularly the National Assembly. The Honorable Dido Raso.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me thank Honorable Kwamboka and his committee for this report. I think to start with, under Article 95, Sub-Article 3, the purpose or the work of National Assembly is oversight. And this is just the beginning, particularly for you in the opposition, to oversight the government. And I want to really thank you. Honorable Speaker, the statutes that establish a state corporation are very clear. State Corporation Act Cap 446 and also Companies Act Cap 486. For that reason, there is no ambiguity in terms of how the state corporation should function under the laws of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, Kenya has over 360 state corporations, whether they are financial, universities, training and research, service, regional development authorities, tertiary education, training, all those different categories. But what must come to light that we need to know and we need to take cognizance of as members of this august House is what is the purpose of a state corporation once it is established. Honorable Speaker, it clearly says to conduct a lawful, ethical, profitable, and sustainable business in order to create value over the long term. What this committee must be telling us during their various excursions to visit different state corporations is if actually they are staying on that red line, if they are staying on their mandate. Honorable Speaker, when we look at the state corporation, for example, the Kenya Airways, for many years, Kenya Airways was a profitable, robust, the face of air in Africa. But over the last 1 decade, Kenya Airways has been on a deathbed where we have been sponsoring them through the National Treasury. I think for the last 2 parliaments where I was serving, all of them, we were actually funding Kenya Airways. What this committee must do, you must extend your tentacles to see which are these money guzzlers that are actually eating from the National Treasury. Because for all intent and purposes, this state corporation should make their money, employ the right number of people, and also by extension, provide services that are competitive, that actually addresses the issue of competition so that Kenyan consumers are not unfairly disadvantaged or exploited for that matter. Honorable Speaker, the word cash cow came about when we started talking about the state corporation. So everybody today in civil service, they'll be very happy, looking forward to work in the state corporation. They pay more money, they pay allowances, you can travel around the world, but at the end of the day, you remain a civil servant. The other guy who is a pen pusher or who is a worker in the field, in the Kenya National Civil Service, feel disadvantaged because those in the state corporation enjoy the state largesse at the expense of the Kenyan taxpayer. And for that reason, when we say, is there value for money in a particular state corporation, we are actually saying, are they able to meet their basic needs without returning to the public coffers? And I think the answer for majority of them, maybe even 330, basically they are depending on the state coffers. And I think that is what the committee must tell us. Are there those state corporations that should wind up? Why would a state corporation established for 200 personnel or human capital is just employing or is being manned by 30 or 10 or 20? It simply means that that particular state corporation is not serving the purpose for which it was formed in the first place. Honorable Speaker, those before me have talked about the face of Kenya. Within the state corporation, there's somebody called the Inspector General. What this House must mandate that individual is for him to ensure every year or every biannual for him to report to this, him or her, to report to this House that a particular state corporation is employing only this group, so that the fairness that the speakers before me have talked about is actually actualized. Finally, Honorable Speaker, for all these state corporations, there is the chairman and the board of management. These individuals are employed. Wherever they sit, they will earn some allowances or salaries. These individuals must earn their rightful place in ensuring that the Kenyan taxpayer is actually guarded against exploitation and wastage. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
For Dido Raso, the Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, on the onset, allow me to appreciate the report by the Committee on PIC, particularly education and governance. As well, appreciate my colleague, the Honorable Member for Bumula, the Chair, for really delivering such a very strong report on the floor of the House. Honorable Speaker, I also want to compliment the committee, particularly for being the first committee to lay, Public Investments Committee, to lay a report on the floor of the House, especially during this 13th Parliament. Honorable Speaker, I will emphasize on a few issues which basically touch on lawfulness and effectiveness on how the report has been delivered, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, deep inside this report, there are 2 or 3 issues which have been really captured that caught my eye. The issue on lack of staffing or staff establishment. Honorable Speaker, what is it that an organization will be saying that it doesn't have staff? What is staff in an organization, Honorable Speaker? In other words, as much as the staff, however crucial it is a key component, Honorable Speaker, to deliver what is lawful to that organization. And Honorable Speaker, when we have formed an organization, which particularly this report touches on, and I will single it out, Kenya National Innovation Agency. In this report, Honorable Speaker, it mentions that it talks of shortage in terms of staff establishment. What kind of innovation shall we be now looking forward to seeing from this organization? Yet in itself, it is not up to standard to deliver its own mandate. Honorable Speaker, this is just but a simple way of how organizations are just withholding what is actually their mandate. Instead, they want to buy time in a manner to suggest that they do not have the requisite staff establishment. So that, Honorable Speaker, they are not able to deliver the mandate on time and when they are called upon to do so. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I really want to appreciate and thank the committee for singling that out, because it cuts across. Wherever you look, whatever report you look at, it talks about a shortage of staff. The staff have moved from the ministry to this agency. These are secondment. And Honorable Speaker, when you second some staff, that particular staff is taking like 2 roles. Yet Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, are in search of jobs. Why should somebody be seconded from a ministry? Why can't he go back and do his original duty, Honorable Speaker? That issue of secondment is killing job opportunities for our youth, and we need, Honorable Speaker, to stamp authority and stop that issues of secondment. Honorable Speaker, in this report, the committee has noted the issue of budgetary control and performance. Honorable Speaker, what is it that you look at an organization which simply does not do simple accounting, matching of purchase orders, and payment vouchers? Anyone who has been in a class of KATC, which is now defunct, Kenya Accounting Technicians, as an accountant, Honorable Speaker, should be able to match POs to payment vouchers. How about, Honorable Speaker, a whole state corporation headed by a chief executive officer the auditor can point out that he is not able to match a purchase order to a payment voucher, Honorable Speaker. This is shameful, and Honorable Speaker, we must call this organization to order. And Honorable Speaker, in this report, the organization that we are talking about is such a serious organization from a pioneer institution, Honorable Speaker, which should lead by example. University of Nairobi Enterprises and Services Limited, Honorable Speaker, that the books of accounts would not be matched. That, Honorable Speaker, the books of accounts were being drawn manually. What a shame are we looking at if it's from a pioneer institution like University of Nairobi as an enterprise unit, Honorable Speaker. What is it that shall we be looking at? Yet, Honorable Speaker, the pioneer institution in teaching commerce, Bachelors of Commerce, which is famously known as BCom, is from University of Nairobi. So what shall we be looking at when we look at such a case, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, the committee has also identified cross-cutting various issues in various departments, Honorable Speaker, and linked, Honorable Speaker, with an issue to do with Procurement and the Disposal Act of 2015. Honorable Speaker, you look at an organization which has also been picked in this report, Honorable Speaker, that there were no reports if called upon. We all know that the Honorable Sakaja in this Parliament, Honorable Speaker, passed a bill which we are all proud of, which is Procurement and Disposal Act of 2015, which, Honorable Speaker, identifies as various persons, youth, women, and persons living with disability, that they should be given positions whenever you are having procurement. Honorable Speaker, the National Council for Nomadic Education, NACONEC, in this report, Honorable Speaker, has been cited that when they were called upon to pick on how many jobs have been given to youth, how many jobs have been given to women, how many jobs have been given to persons living with disability, it was unable to do so. Instead, Honorable Speaker, in the response which is in this report, Honorable Speaker, NACONEC has said that they are now training the staff on how to do public procurement and disposal. What a shame, Honorable Speaker. Does this organization deserve to exist? Yet it's serving very, very key people, Honorable Speaker, in various vulnerable community, Honorable Speaker. Which means, Honorable Speaker, the Chief Executive Officer will simply play around with the person he's serving, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, it's important that, Honorable Speaker, this report, the way the committee has brought it out, is very good. We need to put nail where it is supposed to be. And, Honorable Speaker, call to order these organizations that are misbehaving in terms of management. Honorable Speaker, when you look at issues to do with the costs, Honorable Speaker, is a factor in this report, Honorable Speaker, cutting from the Constitution. When you look at the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, Articles 220, read all through to 229. Those are articles, Honorable Speaker, which establishes various organs and on how money matters are dealt with in terms of bookkeeping, in terms of how to get the budgets, in terms of how to manage the budgets, Honorable Speaker. And, Honorable Speaker, particularly Article 229 of the Constitution empowers the Auditor General to be the sole authority, Honorable Speaker, to report how various organizations are running their affairs. And, Honorable Speaker, if at all the costing of various consultants is an issue, it's picked up in the audit report. And, Honorable Speaker, through my other committees which I chair, you will be finding that it has a similarity with the report that the Honorable Kwamboka has brought to us, Honorable Speaker, where cost of consulting in terms of what is in the books is much higher than, Honorable Speaker, the cost of the project. A cost of a project costing about 600 million, Honorable Speaker, in one area where I'm doing the report, Honorable Speaker, due to be tabled on this House, is costing 1.2 billion. And in similarity, Honorable Speaker, with what this committee has found out, that is the position, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you find that in this report, there is the issue of unsecured or untitled land holdings. What is it that, Honorable Speaker, will you be putting up your infrastructure on land which does not belong to you? What will happen, Honorable Speaker, if the owner comes out and says he now wants the property, the land, to revert back to him? it means the entire property that the government has built onto that land goes to waste, because the property, Honorable Speaker, returns to the owner. Therefore, it's important, and I'm happy, Honorable Speaker, the recommendations by the committee to really push the various entities to get title deeds and move on in a proper manner, Honorable Speaker, is very much correct. Honorable Speaker, there are also the issues on constructions. What we are seeing here, Honorable Speaker, the committee has singled out very, very expensive and long-term taking projects. My colleagues have mentioned the issue of Mutiani House. We came into this house, Honorable Speaker. We tried to fund it, Honorable Speaker. The funds were rejected, Honorable Speaker, because there was no structures on how to get to proceed. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, these issues are very welcome, and my colleague, Honorable Kwamboka, you've done a good job, and we just wish, Honorable Speaker, that also we make sure, whereas we are oversighting various organizations through such reports, let also Parliament not be part of these reports when PAC will be bringing the report in terms of the Bunge Towers. We hope the management of Parliament will see that the Bunge Towers can start working very soon so that we are not part of the bad books in public accounts committees. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support this report by the PIC on education and governance.
Before we proceed with the motion, again, let me recognize the following institutions, both in the Speaker's Gallery and in the public gallery. In the Speaker's Gallery, St. Joseph's High School, Kitale, from Saboti constituency, Trans Nzoia County. Also in the Speaker's Gallery, St. Joseph's Boys, Kitale, Saboti, Trans Nzoia, that is the same one. Then we have in the public gallery, Menengai Primary School from Nakuru East constituency in Nakuru County. And then I'm told there are various youth leaders from across the country also in the Speaker's Gallery to observe the proceedings. On behalf of the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Moses Wetangula, you are welcome to observe proceedings in the National Assembly. And I will give, therefore, Honorable Babu Owino must speak. Yeah, but he'll only speak after Honorable Lillian Sioi has welcomed the students from Trans Nzoia and all students to the House of Parliament. Honorable Lillian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for granting me this chance to welcome my students from Trans Nzoia County. Mr. Speaker, these are one of the most performing schools in Trans Nzoia County, and my message to you, our boys, we were once seated there, today we are here, and I know tomorrow it will be you sitting here. Amongst them, we have got all kind of profession, Mr. Speaker, and I believe these are the future leaders of this country, and let nothing come between you. Let the sky be your limit. To all the students, keep on working hard and work smart. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. And Honorable Lillian, Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi will not forgive me if he never welcomed the students to the House on behalf of the male gender.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I also want to take this opportunity to welcome St. Joseph's Second School students here. On my own behalf and the behalf of the people of Trans Nzoia, nasema karibu, work hard. I want to say that the sky is the limit. Tomorrow you might be members of Parliament from Trans Nzoia, so please work hard, and I wish you well. Thank you so much.
And lastly, the Honorable Dr. Babu Owino. To maybe welcome the youth leadership from across the country in the House.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity, first of all, at least to also welcome the students who are here first. Honorable Speaker, they might not forgive me for being the longest serving student leader on earth from the University of Nairobi. And to the students who are here from Trans Nzoia, I want to tell you that you are the best among the rest. Your honorable members have done the best job to ensure that you come here in Parliament, and I would like to congratulate the women rep for Trans Nzoia, together with Honorable Wanyonyi and Honorable Caleb Amisi, for the great job that they've done. To our students, know that where we are is where you belong. Where you are, we have doctors among you, we have engineers among you, we have teachers among you, we have members of parliament among you, and we have leaders in different professions in this country. Just know that in the next few years, you will be somebody in life. It doesn't matter where you come from. All these members of parliament you are seeing here, including the honorable speaker who is seated there, came from a very humble background, from a very sorry background. But just know that with determination, you will make it. And us as your members of parliament, we will ensure that we hold your hand so that you reach the highest level, the highest echelon of education in this country. From high school, ensure that you go to the university. That is where comrade power is. From the university, ensure that you get a degree certificate, 1. If you are a man, ensure that you get a wife from the university, 2. If you are a lady, ensure that you get a man from the university, 3. Because the kind of babies you will sire, the intellectual capacity of such babies will be at optimum. Honorable Speaker, now to the youth leaders who are here.
Honorable Babuino, I gave you only 1 minute.
Thank you, thank you.
So can you be concluding?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. To the youth leaders who are here, we are all comrades. And I know very soon, in 2027, some of you will be in Parliament, some of you will be in various positions in this country, and let us fight on. We will always fight for your inherent and inalienable rights. I can see one of the most active ladies in the nation, Tabitha, tunakupenda sana. Asanteni sana, the youth leaders. May God bless you all. Asanteni.
Thank you very much. Let me, I know all youthful MPs want to speak, but there is a way by which we do things in Parliament. So I would request we return to the main business we are transacting. Let me call upon Honorable Samuel Atande to make his presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity, first of all, to contribute to the motion on the floor. But before I do that, let me join my colleague Babu Owino in welcoming the youth leaders who have come to Parliament today. I know Tabitha is one of our strong women, young women leaders in this country, and she's here together with her colleagues. Welcome to Parliament. I see her as also joining us here in the next Parliament. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, back to the motion. I would like to say that I support this motion as ably tabled by the chairman, Mr. Honorable Amboka. And Honorable Speaker, before I say something, let me say, Honorable Speaker, that Honorable Amboka is a first-time MP in this Parliament and also chairing a very important committee of this House, PIC, Governance and Education. And the work that they have done together with the committee is a testimony that this House has talent, competence, and diversity. And it does not matter whether you are first-time MP or fourth-time MP, any member of this House is competent and capable of giving this House the results that we want as a House. And therefore, I want to thank Honorable Amboka for demonstrating that being a first-time MP is not inability. And Honorable Speaker, coming back to the content of the report, Honorable Speaker, this report is very comprehensive. And first of all, the report is educative. If you look at the report, Honorable Speaker, you will see that a number of agencies have been listed here. Chairman, Honorable Speaker, before this report, I did not know that there are agencies such as JQuat Noodles Limited. There are agencies like National Council for Science, Technology and Innovation. Many agencies that I don't know even what they do. And Honorable Speaker, if you look at these agencies, there are so many, and you wonder why they should not be amalgamated. And an agency like National Council for Science and Technology. The other one is the National Center for Mathematics science, technology, education in Africa. I think the first thing that we need to do as a House, Honorable Speaker, is to amalgamate these agencies, because there are many, and you even wonder what they are doing. What are they achieving? Yeah, so this is the first assignment which I think we need to do. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, I wanted to say that the report has information about agencies that are not completing their development programs, especially construction. An example here is Kenya National Examination Council, Honorable Speaker, which it is reported, has been constructing a project for more than 37 years. But Honorable Speaker, since I joined this Parliament and sitting in Budget Committee, this House has been appropriating resources to this agency each and every year for this infrastructure. And therefore, all I want to say, since Honorable Owen Baya has been defending government against this report, I want to urge him to ask the President to revive whatever is stalled, because I have seen him reviving and recommissioning projects which were commissioned by President Kenyatta in Mount Kenya region. Please come back to Nairobi and also revive these projects, because these projects we have been allocating resources. I don't know why they are not being completed, yet you are alive here, and the President is alive. Please, we want to see the President next week restarting these projects which are stalled here in this report. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that consultancies is one of the avenues of corruption in government. And the fact of the matter is that if you look at ministries such as Treasury.
Honorable Owen Baya, what is out of order?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to assure my friend Atandi, the MP for Lagos Soga, that the President is keen to revive all projects, and that he will be here to ensure that all projects that have been given money and have been started are complete on time. So I would like to ask you, Honorable Atandi, to wait for us. We will do that, and we love you for telling us to do our job, because that is the job of the minority and the job of the opposition. We thank you for telling us to do our job, because that is your job to do it. We thank you.
Honorable Owen Baya, that was a point of information.
Thank you.
Possibly imposed on Honorable Atandi without request. Honorable Atandi, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wanted to say that there is this issue of consultancies in government. And Honorable Speaker, if you look at the budgets of a department such as Treasury, you will find that every year there is an allocation of a humongous amount for consultancies. And the information I have, Honorable Speaker, is that the reports, the consultancies are basically revived. What was consulted for in the last financial year is being requested for consultation in this financial year at the same fee. And the consultants are the same. What they do is they simply just, they just mark the reports and then they copy them again. So the committee proposing that these consultancies is the basis for swindling public resources is something which we need to investigate and support, because we have realized that corruption in the consultancy sector is budgeted for. And I know that they are briefcase consultants. Most of them are also on Twitter, Honorable Speaker. They support government on Twitter. If you see some of these consultants on Twitter, they really campaign for government. They defect each and every morning. Today they are in government, tomorrow they are in opposition. If they are invited and given these consultancies, they now support government. And there's nothing value they are adding to the taxpayers. And therefore I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that this House must be very vigilant. The other issue that I wanted to say, Honorable Speaker, is on national inclusivity. Honorable Speaker, this country, the civil service and public sector is being run in a way that this House should never support. We cannot have, for example, Honorable Speaker, a department where 90% of employees come from one ethnic community. And this is also an example in this executive, Honorable Speaker. We have one of the worst executives in this country, Honorable Speaker, where the executive of this country is ethnically and intellectually imbalanced. Because if you look at the executive, if you look at the cabinet, there are very few intellectuals. Most of them are, people you cannot even, judge. And if you want to rate them among competent Kenyans, they will never even be halfway. So the imbalance that is there in this executive, in terms of ethnic diversity and in terms of intellectual capacity, is one thing. And we cannot be told that the government will do something. They will not do anything because the feast begins to rot from the top. Immediately the cabinet is constituted and it is rotten. Everything will be rotten until the small agencies of government. Therefore, I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that I don't know what this House will need to do, because I know when a topic like this is brought before this House, then members of Parliament begin to regroup and they begin to see each other in terms of tribes. In the end, it is the Kenyan public that will suffer, because when I raise a matter of this nature, a person from Mount Kenya will say, no, the people in that office are from my region. A person from Coast will do the same. And this is the reason why this country is hurting. So, Honorable Speaker, the question of regional and ethnic diversity is something which is well explained in the Constitution. And it is time this House becomes very tough and begin to insist that we want to see that diversity reflected in public offices. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Again, I want to say that, Honorable Speaker, oversight is an important function of this House. And the reason why this country is failing is because we are not doing proper oversight. If we begin the way Honorable Amboka has begun, of presenting a knife-cutting, a sharp-cutting report like this one, we will urge other oversight agency committees in this House to do the same. And in the end, Honorable Speaker, we will be able to help this country in terms of addressing the gaps that have been highlighted in this report, such as 1, weak systems, 2, corruption in these agencies, and etc. Honorable Speaker, thank you, and I support the report.
Thank you, Honorable Atandi. I recognize Honorable Cecilia Ngetit, then Honorable Mary Emase, in that order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to add my voice on this report. I want to thank the committee that has brought this report to the House. The report is so comprehensive and it is candid. I want to congratulate the chair and the entire committee. Honorable Speaker, we will agree, all of us will agree that our roles are the same as legislatures, irrespective of which divide of the House we come from. When it comes to oversight, it becomes our role that is basic to all of us. Whether we are in government or in opposition, oversight is our role. And when an oversight report like this one is brought on the table, Honorable Speaker, it is our role as legislatures to pick out things that are really speaking into the lives of Kenyans. I want to support this motion, this report, that indeed it has talked about the evils that are bedeviling Kenyans. One of the evils that has caught my attention, Honorable Speaker, is the ethnicity. It is true, and it is in public domain, that presence of some tribes in government institutions is very questionable. If you did a head count, even by guess, but just by looking at them, you will find out that some of the tribes are missing in institutions of government. Looking at a tribe like Turkana, since creation, there has never been a CEO in this country coming from a Turkana tribe. Mr. Speaker, that speaks to us that indeed regional balancing is a dream yet to be realized in this country. And it's not that no educated people in that particular community. Most of our communities have taken their children to school and they are qualified to take these positions, Honorable Speaker. The other evil that is eating our country up is corruption, Honorable Speaker. As well put in the report, corruption comes out and it is taking our country to dogs, especially on contracts and hiring of, and getting the job opportunities. You find that, Honorable Speaker, every time there is a tender notice, money exchange hands, then we end up giving contracts to quack contractors, and that will result to poor construction. We will not get value for money, Honorable Speaker. Then the other evil that has been pointed out by the report is the behavior of the CEOs, the accounting officers. Honorable Speaker, we want to tell the CEOs of this country that when you are in that office, please don't imagine that you are a CEO representing your village or representing your tribe or representing whoever put you there in an irregular manner. You have to know that you are a CEO of an institution that is public in nature, and you are answerable to each and every Kenyan from all corners of this country, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the report goes ahead to tell us about stalled projects by some government institutions. Honorable Speaker, in the northern Kenya, it's either these institutions are less or none at all. In places where I come from, I'm learning, just the way Honorable Atandi is learning about some agencies he has never heard about. Even me, Honorable Speaker, as a county MP for Turkana, there are institutions I've never known they exist in this country. But when you are here in Nairobi, and some of them in nature are supposed to be down there on ground. When you look at their job description and the activities they are supposed to be doing, Honorable Speaker, you realize they are supposed to be somewhere in a border point between Kenya and Ethiopia in some Turkana village. But you find that presence is zero completely, Honorable Speaker. Then now, our good report goes ahead. On the recommendation parts, Honorable Speaker, they are very friendly, yet the report itself is heavy. But when you look at the recommendations are not good. They are not commensurate with the evils that have been talked about by the report. So I want to appeal to this oversight committee that please relook at the recommendations so that they are commensurate with the evils that these government institutions are doing on our people. So we want to show you gesture as MPs from government side that when it comes to oversight, there is nothing like government. Because if my people wouldn't have elected me to this house, government will not know who is Honorable Cecilia. So, Honorable Speaker, we want to assure you that those of you who are seated in oversight committees, you have our full support. When you point out an evil from government, we will support you. All our prime reason of being here is every Kenyan should get what he should get. Every Kenyan should get services as enshrined in the Constitution. So, Honorable Speaker, thanks so much for this opportunity. I want to applaud this committee. They have done a tremendous job. And from remarks by Honorable Atandi, the chairman of the committee is a first term like us. So that should speak to the would-be powers that it is not about being the first term. It is about the intellectuals of the honorable member. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Cecilia Ngititi is always to the point. Honorable Mary Emase.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. I also join my colleagues in adding my voice to the debate. And from the onset, I want to also commend the chairman, Honorable Wanami Wamboka, chair of the Public Investment Committee, for this very good report before us. Honorable Speaker, one of our key roles as members of parliament is oversight. And one of the means through which we oversight is through the reports of the auditor, controller of, through the Auditor General's reports, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, that is why I keep saying that the office of the Controller and Auditor General must be properly resourced so that they have the capacity, they have sufficient resources to be able to procure enough staff to be able to provide us with the timely reports. Timely reports are very important because through these reports we can see serious concerns have been raised that would now enable members of parliament to be able to undertake their oversight role. Having said that, Honorable Speaker, I want to go to the substantive issues that have been raised by this report. One of them being that the untitled public land, some of which has been encroached into. Honorable Speaker, this doesn't cut across only these sagas that have been mentioned in these reports. Even when you look at a number of our schools and many other institutions, you find there's a lot of public land that has not yet been titled. And at this juncture, Honorable Speaker, I want to urge the Minister of Lands. While processing title deeds, we hear them issuing title deeds to various communities across the country. Let them prioritize public land public land for government institutions, public land for schools, so that all this public land is titled, Honorable Speaker. And one of the purposes of this audit is so that these sagas institutions can actually enhance their productivity or improvements in their operations, to improve in their operations. Because the audit is able to uncover some of the limitations, some of the challenges, which then enables these institutions to be able to improve and therefore enhance and improve service delivery to the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, also in this report, it raises a concern about projects that have become white elephants. Incomplete projects that have been there for more than 35 years. And what this means is that the Kenyan people do not get value for money. The benefit which was intended to be derived from this implementation and the complete implementation of these projects is therefore lost. And I want to urge these sagas to borrow from NGCDF. NGCDF today has a policy that before we budget for any other project, we must complete ongoing projects. So if we can have a policy, legislation, this transcends any transition, leadership transition, or because the projects will have to be completed, Honorable Speaker, so that it does not become a milking cow, a cash cow, it does not become a white elephant. Honorable Speaker, having said that, I also want to echo the issue, one of the other concerns, that most of these sagas have failed to adhere to the gender, the ethnicity, regional balance, and other considerations in staffing. This is one of the areas of contention. Most Kenyans, especially marginalized communities, like the Iteso community where I come from, you'll go to many offices and you'll not find a TESO. Honorable Speaker, that's why you find some of the marginalized communities, we are even agitating for our own counties because of marginalization. There is no equity in distribution of jobs in this country. You'll go to some sagas, you only find 2 or 3 certain communities, depending on who are the leaders or the leadership, the CEO, name them. So I want to add my voice to the rest of the members who have said there is need for equity. And therefore, the recommendations by the committee to all these sagas that they must comply to the provisions of the Constitution. They must comply to the provisions of the PFM Act, even in administering the resources that we have budgeted for on behalf of the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, I want to just thank this committee. This is a good job, it's commendable, and we must continue to support the Office of the Controller and the Auditor General to be able to give us reports like this so that we're able to take action, so that we're able to make recommendations, so that we're able to follow up to ensure that there's value for money for the people of Kenya. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable John Waluke, MP for Sirisia.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I want also to join my colleagues to contribute on this motion. But first, I want to thank the chair of the committee and his committee, Honorable Speaker. The chair has done a marvelous job, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the initiative of the Speaker for dividing this committee, PIC committee, into 3. And Honorable Speaker, it is really making the work of Parliament very efficient. And if we continue like that with other committees that are heavily loaded with a lot of work, Mr. Speaker, they should also check into that. Mr. Speaker, it is true that there is misuse of public funds in many institutions, Mr. Speaker, as the chair of the committee has put it. Mr. Speaker, the most and worst institution, Mr. Speaker, in this country that misuse and misdirect And it can even spend the money, Mr. Speaker, and leave the project uncompleted. Mr. Speaker, it is the Ministry of Public Works. For many years, Mr. Speaker, many projects have stalled just because the money is not there. The government can allocate money, but the consultants and contractors, Mr. Speaker, they will consume and eat all the money and leave the project uncompleted, and they don't care, Mr. Speaker. And this, Mr. Speaker, should come out clearly, and the investigators of this country, Mr. Speaker, either on corruption and DCI, should look into this, that why a project can take 30 years, and the money being allocated every budget year, and the project take 5 years, even after 5 years, as I speak, it is not complete. Why is it like that? It's because of poor management of the institution, Mr. Speaker, and this has been proven. Even on the committee, Mr. Speaker, one time when I was on the implementation committee, Mr. Speaker, I witnessed. And even this, as we are talking, Mr. Speaker, we are contributing on this floor. After this, we are going to pass this report, Mr. Speaker, and the implementation committee should take initiative to make sure that what we have passed is implemented. This committee is also, Mr. Speaker, letting Kenyans down. Kenyans need to have value for their money because they contribute. Like this time, Mr. Speaker, it is hard to get money, and the public is really feeling it. So, Mr. Speaker, like these projects we are talking about, taking 35 years and completed. And in one way, Mr. Speaker, either if it is us who allocates the money, we also take a blame. Like we have been allocating money to Kenya Airways. Every year we take the money, we allocate the money, 20, 50 billion, and it is siphoned by some people. And another year, even this year, I think we have allocated money. So we also need to check into this so that our work in the House be perfect, and so that the public should not talk ill of us, that we also misdirect the money to some institutions that are not working. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support the report of the chair, the Honorable Wamboka, Jack Wamboka, for the good work he has done with his committee, Mr. Speaker. And the issue of tribalism in this country, Mr. Speaker, as members of parliament, we need to talk about it seriously because we are the representative of the people, Mr. Speaker, and also gender. Many women of this country, Honorable Speaker, I think they can manage the money properly more than us men. Because in the institutions where they have been, where they are, Mr. Speaker, they are not crude like us. Men can just decide to take the money, but a woman will say no. Even if she will decide to steal, it will be very little. But a man can steal even billions and all, doesn't care. So the women of this country, Honorable Speaker, as a house, we need to make sure that they are placed and given good positions so that they manage the money of this country, Honorable Speaker. Thank you. I support.
Honorable Catherine Omanyo, the MP for Busia. County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This report, I really thank the committee members, the chair, for intensively and extensively looking into every sphere of our nation to see where the loopholes are. It is actually waking even me up to also start monitoring how every institution, whether private or public in Kenya, is run. I have been looking into especially the report that says, the recommendation that says that every institution must be ethnically balanced. We are being chewed by nepotism in this nation. When I look at taxpayers, I don't see Azimio or Kenya Kwanza or what. Taxpayers are Kenyans. And every dime that is brought out for doing development in our nation should be accountable and should actually serve every Kenyan without being partisan. Every Kenyan must feel it. So a lot of mishaps that have happened in Kenya have happened because some of us, or most of us in the places of authority, have been quiet about the ill, the cancer of tribalism. Because when we allow that, it means that many people who could have served our country well are alienated, and we get dissatisfactory answers or dissatisfactory solutions or decision making on boardrooms or in places where some decisions could have been made by real professionals who could have helped our country from not going into a brink. And also we get undervalued or overlooked by people who just fill the offices but have nothing to offer. Most of them have been given because maybe they are acquainted to somebody in power or something like that. So it ends up many people in higher ranking offices abusing their authority. And then also many people, if I am Luya, and then many people who are employed in that offices are lawyers, that means they can't question and demand for answers why things are not going the way. Maybe we had Vision 2030, if it is still on or not. Or if I just decide to steal and I'm the one who employed them, they can't also question me. So this report is beautiful, and the committee has really not saved or protected anybody. They were literally looking into how do we make it better for all of us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Catherine Nomanya. The Honorable Paul Biego, MP for Chemusei. Did I say Chemusei or Chesume? Should be MP for Chesume.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I don't know where you're getting that other name. It should actually be Chesumei.
I apologize.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the report from the PIC committee. And I'm actually very proud that this report was headed by the chair, a chair who is a first-timer. So I'm very proud of Hon Jack Wamboko that you have actually spoken and you have shown the whole world that if the first-timers are given opportunities to be chairpersons, they can even be better than they can be better. Thank you so much. And again, thank you also for the speaker, and thank you for all those who actually split the PIC so that it split into 3. And by so, we have now a report, a serious report, which we are seeing and which we are actually debating on, a comprehensive report, a good report, because at least it was split. Mr. Speaker, As I support this report, would also urge all the accounting officers, because as I read the report, the committee was citing non-compliance, and that non-compliance was actually from accounting officers. So I urge all the accounting officers to be able to follow the PFM Act, and many of the accounting officers need to be providing the supporting documents when needed from them, and they should also be able to give proper explanations to the Auditor General so that even our work becomes simpler when they have complied and given the Auditor General, who we believe and who we are congratulating for doing good job. Without them, probably we would not be knowing many of the nitty-gritties that take place in parastatals or in companies or in entities. So actually, I congratulate the Office of Auditor General. And again, to also add a voice to the accounting officers, they need to devise strategies so that our Kenya Kwanza manifesto to be realized of collection of revenue, they need to also raise revenue and cut costs in the various enterprises and the various firms. So management of various bodies should be able to avail comprehensive business plans in order to ensure that wastages in the parastatals and bodies are minimized. Those who are caught floating the rules, to me, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that the full force should actually, they should meet the full force so that at least we have zero tolerance on non-compliance, especially non-compliance of the Constitution. All that, I give credit to the committee, and I know for sure it's just that we were also late as the Special Funds Committee, but equally, as a first-timer chairperson, you're expecting to get a thorough and a very good report just like this one of PIC from the Special Funds Committee, and it's headed by a first-timer. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Biego. The Honorable Zamzam Chimba, Member of Parliament for Mombasa County.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Kama unavyoona leo nimevaa vazi la Kimijikenda, vazi la nyumbani. Kwa wale ambao wako nyumbani wakiuliza Mama Zamzam ni wa wapi, nimekatilili the second. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Nachukua fursa hii kumshukuru ndugu yangu Mheshimiwa Wamboka, asema ni mjomba wangu kwa sababu mama ni wa huko. Haya, Mheshimiwa Wamboka ambaye ni mjomba, namshukuru sana kuleta mjadala huu wa leo. Na ni dhahiri shairi kuwa pesa za umma zimekuwa zinatumika vibaya. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia katika miradi ambayo imekuwa ikifanya katika taifa hili, unapata miradi ya kurejelea katika sehemu moja, sehemu ambayo tayari imeinuka kiuchumi, imeinuka, iko katika hali nzuri, bado pesa zinazidi kwenda kule, wakati sehemu ambayo iko na uchochole, sehemu ambayo bado iko chini katika maendeleo, inapewa mgao kidogo sana. Na licha ya haya yote ndio unapata pengine makadirio ya kujenga skuli, wakiandika milioni 5, unapata wamejenga kirum kimoja cha 500,000. Pesa zingine zote zimerambwa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, na ningependa kuzungumza nikisema hivi. Huu mjadala ambao mwenzetu ameleta katika bunge hii ni mambo ambayo yanaathiri mwananchi kila uchao. Na hata kama ndugu yangu upande wa pili alisema wako kwenye kurekebisha, lakini mimi nataka niseme hatuwezi kukaa tukisema tunarekebisha wakati mambo enda yombo. Ndio maana tumepoteza bilioni 700 kila mwaka tunapoteza. Kwa sababu vitu hivi wakifanya mahesabu yao hawawezi kutupa uhakika wamehesabu wamefanya kitu gani, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na ndio maana unaona kuna projects nyingi kama alivyosema ndugu yangu Waluke zimekaa zimedudumaa ziko still. Project zimeanzishwa ziko msituni, nyasi zimemea kule, wakati kuna sehemu pengine jumba kama lile linahitajika, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na wakija kufanya katika mambo ya hisabati wanapata kuwa pesa zilizotumika pale ni pesa nyingi, kuwa ilikwenda namna gani. Hiyo ni dhahiri kuwa pesa zimeingia katika mifuko ya watu. Mheshimiwa Spika, ardhi nyingi za skuli, ardhi za colleges, ardhi za shule za upili zimefanya kuibiwa na watu kwa sababu ya kuwa hawana zile title deed, hati miliki. Wamekosa hati miliki, na hata tukiangalia katika kanda za pwani, hasa nikizungumzia ndani ya Mombasa, tunaangalia skuli nyingi, Mheshimiwa Spika, hazina title deed na ni shule za zamani sana. Lakini ukija kuulizwa unasikia kuna mtu fulani amechukua kipande kidogo ndani ya shule. Kuna mtu fulani sijui amevuta anajenga jumba lingine pale. Na hii ndio maana nasema kuwa nampongeza sana Mheshimiwa Wamboka kwa sababu ameleta mjadala ambao utaona shule zetu na sehemu za masomo, yani institutions, zinaangaliwa vizuri ziweze kupata title deeds zao. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia katika mambo ya ugavi wa mambo ya kazi, kama walivyosema wenzangu na mimi pia natilia pondo, ni kuwa kuna sehemu ya makabila ambao utawaona tu katika kazi fulani, kwa sababu pale pengine mkubwa anayeongoza katika ile sehemu ni kabila lao, wengine wote watakuwa wameachwa nje. Na mimi nikizungumzia watu wangu wa pwani. Na hata tukiingia Mombasa utapata, Mheshimiwa Spika, kule kuna rasilimali zetu, lakini wanaomiliki, wanaoshikilia hatamu ya uongozi katika sehemu zile na wale walioajiriwa pale sio katika sisi. Wanatoa ajira, utapata libasi latoka sijui wapi, laleshukishwa Mombasa, pengine watoto wanapewa zile trainings, watoto badala wachukuliwe ndani ya Mombasa, basi atoka sehemu nyingine ya mwaga kule Mombasa. Hii ni kuonyesha kuwa sisi tunadharauliwa. Na mimi nataka nielezee serikali hii, vile mlivyoahidi kuwa mtatetea haki za wanyonge, sisi tunataka kuona pwani kule rasilimali zetu tunazimiliki wenyewe 70% kama ilivyo katika katiba. Ikiwa 30% itarudi kwa wengine, hiyo hatuwezi kukataa kwa sababu ni sheria. Mheshimiwa Spika, watoto wetu wamekosa hata sehemu za kusomea, na utapata kuwa kuna sehemu zingine hapa Kenya ambapo utapata pengine barabara za jengwa, barabara kipande kutoka hapa mpaka pale, kipande kidogo kimechukua mamilioni ya pesa na barabara haijaisha. Miradi inaanzishwa, unapata mradi umedudumaa uko hivyo na pesa zimeliwa, unapata unabadilisha sijui kontrakta mpya. Haya ni mambo ambayo tunapigana nayo, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na mimi nataka kusema tusipoangalia kwa kina, itakuwa Mkenya analipishwa ushuru mwingi sana, lakini pesa zinaingia kwenye mifuko ya watu ambao hawana shukrani. Yule maskini atakuwa analipishwa ushuru mkubwa sana, na kuna watu mahali wamekaa hata ni matajiri wanazidi kutajirika kila uchao, na maskini anazidi kuwa maskini kila siku, Mheshimiwa Spika. Ikiwa Mombasa ama ikiwa kule Kilifi bado maendeleo hayajafika vizuri, ule mgao ukija waangalie pengine Meru kuna watu wameendelea vizuri. Kwa mfano napigia kwa mfano mbunge wa Meru asinitoe jicho hapa. Kwa mfano nasema ikiwa pengine Nairobi yale maendeleo yako yameshika kasi, basi waangalie sehemu ambayo yale maendeleo hayajafika ili tuweze kuwekeza huko, Mheshimiwa Spika, ili tujue kuwa Wakenya wote Wanalipa nini? Wanalipa ushuru, lakini kila mmoja anapata haki yake. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, nikimalizia mimi nataka nizungumzie mambo ya elimu na docket ya education, na ningependa hata imfikie waziri wa elimu. Sisi kina mama kaunti 47 tunahangaika sana, na ukiangalia kuna mgao uliingia kwao, pesa zile ambazo zilikuwa za kugawa sodo. Juzi jana nimetoka katika mashule nikigawanya sodo kutoka kwa mfuko wangu, Mheshimiwa Spika, na zile ni skuli, na ukiwauliza wanakuambia hizi sodo sisi hatujawahi kupata kule. Na haya ndo makadirio ambayo tunasema yanawekwa katika budget, lakini pesa hazifiki kule mashinani kufanya kazi ambayo inatakiwa kufanya. Mimi ningependa kuwaomba hivi, kina mama wa kaunti 47, sisi tumehangaika sana, na wenzangu wako hapa watasema, tunaomba hizi pesa hasa kama zile za sodo tuweze kuletewa katika doketi yetu, badala ya sisi maskini. Kaunti ni kubwa, mgao wetu mdogo sana, na wabunge wako na mgao wao, alhamdulillah, mgao mzuri sana, lakini sisi tumepewa kaunti kubwa kuzunguka na pesa ndogo, wakati pesa zingine zaingia kiholela katika dockets ambazo hatuoni zafanya kazi gani. Ikiwa wanaweza kuelekeza mapeni katika docket moja, ili waulize Mama Zamzam, wewe kama mama kaunti tulieka pesa za sodo, hebu tupatieni hesabu pamoja na ule afisa, tuangalie umepeleka skuli ngapi, zimebaki ngapi, kama zilisha vipi. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, hivi tunavyozungumza, watoto wako kule Mwakirunge wanatumia yale matawi ya mnazi kuweza kujisaidia katika mambo yao ya hedhi. Kwa sababu gani? Skuli za kule hazijafika sodo, na mamilioni yalitangazwa hapa katika bunge hili kuwa yametoka ili kuweza kununua sodo. Sisi tunaomba hata zikija katika docket yetu ya agenda, pia waangalie vizuri ziwe zitafikia kina mama wa kaunti 47, kwa sababu sisi ni kina mama na tunaelewa haya masala. Mheshimiwa Spika, mambo ni mengi, lakini mimi huwa nasema ukweli. Nasema ukweli na nitarudia kusema ukweli siku zote. Wapwani sisi tunahangaika mambo ya title deed, na hizi title zetu zaibiwa humu ndani ya Nairobi. Wale mabwenyenye wanaangalia Mombasa, shamba gani halina title deed. Mzee wa miaka 100 amekaa katika shamba yake, anakuja kufurushwa, anaambiwa kuna mtu ameiba, amechukua shamba na yeye ndo ana ile title deed. Sisi tunasema mara ya kwanza hii serikali iangalie wakazi wa pwani waweze kupewa hati miliki, ili na sisi tujione kama Wakenya. Isiwe kuwa pwani si Kenya. Hatutaki kuimba wimbo huo, tunataka tuseme pwani ni Kenya tukipata hati miliki. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Asante sana kwa kuongea kwa Kiswahili murwa. Mheshimiwa Marwa Kitayama. Basi Mheshimiwa Profesa Phyllis Barto, mjumbe wa eneo bunge wa Moiben. Natumai wewe pia utaongea kwa hiyo lugha wanafunzi wa kuelewa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise also to support this report from the committee, from the Public Investment Committee on Governance and Education, and also to thank the Chair, Honorable Wanami Wamboka, MP, and his team for this bold move to bring to the attention of the Parliament the findings from the Auditor General. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the recommendations by the committee, you will realize that they've touched on very heavyweight issues relating to governance and expenditure in the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, looking at the recommendation 1, where they are touching on the accounting officers and their inability or lack of capacity in the dockets which they hold, for example, Mr. Speaker, that speaks a lot. What needs to be done, Mr. Speaker, is that if those particular officers are still in position of power and still holding those dockets, they need to be vetted afresh so that those institutions can be led by competent public officers. Mr. Speaker, how do you explain an accounting officer preparing an accounting report without supporting documents? Even a primary school child knows that if you are given homework, you are supposed to go and write and submit. But an accounting officer who is serving in a serious public office, not being able to support, to provide documents, supporting documents, especially in issues related to finances, it is a serious malpractice. And those officers should be, and I say, be subjected to vetting afresh, or they are competent Kenyans who are willing to work and they don't have these jobs, they can be considered. We have cases of land, Mr. Speaker. The Ministry of Lands should be swift in making sure that every piece of Kenya is documented. Mr. Speaker, let me give an example of schools where I'm a member of the Education Committee. Some of the schools were not able to get capitation because they are not registered, because they don't have title deeds registered in their schools. So eventually, they don't benefit, or they are not able to complete the registration process because of the title. Mr. Speaker, how I wish the ministry would do due diligence to make sure that they capture. I have a case of a school in Moiben, Mr. Speaker, which is a school within the municipality. It is referred to as Chebarus B. In this school, Mr. Speaker, it is within the municipality, and teachers are supposed to be getting what we call enhanced allowance, which is an allowance for all teachers in Kenya who operate within the municipality. The teachers in this particular school have not benefited from time immemorial, just because their school is not registered, they don't have a title, so in that case, their documentations cannot be complete. So I think the ministry should do due diligence. Oversight is very important, Mr. Speaker. And we should not be all planning to work in government to an extent. I mean, as legislators, we shouldn't be all wishing to be part of the government to an extent that we forget the oversight role. Mr. Speaker, I'm imagining the Kenya Kwanza team and the Azimio should not at one time think about having an handshake where they can work together so that the issue of oversight is continued to be implemented. Mr. Speaker, we also have projects which are long overdue. They have not been completed. You find a project like Mutiani House, which was started.
Is that Honorable Millie Odhiambo? Yes, granted. What is out of order? Why are you running from your mic?
Oh, sorry. Can hear me?
Honorable Millie Odhiambo.
Hello? I think this is better.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, with the due respect to the honorable member, I didn't wish to interrupt her, but is she in order to imply that Azimio is looking for a handshake
when we have not asked for any handshake anywhere. And we have been on record that we are also not looking for any nusu mkati, any a quarter mkati, any 3/4 mkati. We are looking for full buffalo by the opening of the server. So do not be misguided that we want any handshake. We don't want, especially dirty handshake filled with the blood of young Kenyans who have been killed. We don't want any
Honorable Emilio Odhiambo, what is buffalo?
What is out of order is that is she in order to imply that Azimio wants any handshake.
No, I'm asking,
that is misleading.
I'm asking what is buffalo?
What is?
Buffalo.
Oh, sorry. Buffalo is your mkatia, which is, oh, sorry. I need to speak only in English. Buffalo is a bread. But we want to tell them that they should not be delusional. Azimio does not want a third, a quarter, 3/4 of any bread. We want full bread when the server is open. Yes, we don't even want a slice. And we don't want a handshake. Hands which are full of blood of people who have been killed. We don't want. Let me continue.
Honorable Owen, what is out of order?
You know, I have a lot of respect for, yes, he's senior, both legal mind and in parliament. Yes, and senior in very many things. But I also want to tell her that, I also want to inform the Honorable Millie Odhiambo that the server, as a legal mind, she knows that she needs to go to court or somewhere else to have servers opened. And those servers probably may not be open. So the buffalo you are looking for probably after 2027 and not now. So please keep off the talk about buffalo. We know you are yearning for a handshake and half of government. We want to make it very clear that the government of William Samoei Ruto will not entertain any handshake, neither will it entertain half a bread or a quarter bread. So,
Honorable Millie Odhiambo, you are being out of order.
Thank you,
Honorable Owen, which server are you talking about being opened? Which servers?
The server that only Millie Odhiambo
Oh, the server Honorable Millie Odhiambo is talking about. I take it as a light moment between Honorable Millie Odhiambo and the Deputy Minority Leader. Honorable Phyllis Barto, proceed.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chair. But thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's not that I was implying that Azimio and Kenya Kwanza should do an handshake. What I was saying is that Azimio should continue with its oversight role and Kenya Kwanza to run the government, such that such issues which we are encountering here will not arise if everybody does their role. And for the handshake, there is no handshake because the elections were done, the court made its pronouncement, and we have a president. So I don't know, we shouldn't be talking about handshake. The bipartisan talk which should be going on now.
Honorable Millie, you are not recognized. Honorable Phyllis Barto, proceed.
Yeah, the bipartisan talks which should be going on between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza should be now within this document. This report has a lot of information to be worked on. So Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, the majority leader, and his counterpart should start from this report. Mr. Speaker, however, let me continue with what I was making a point on the issue of land, and that the Ministry of Lands should move with speed and ensure that every piece of part of Kenya is documented. And I was giving an example of some schools in my constituency where they don't have title deeds, and as a result, they are not benefiting from government support like capitation, to an extent that even some schools where the teachers are supposed to be benefiting from an house allowance, like those teachers who are in municipalities, are not benefiting because they don't have title deeds. And when a school doesn't have a title, it is very difficult to benefit from any government or to perform any operation. We also have cases of clashes in my constituency, Mr. Speaker, because people have multiple titles. You see, you find somebody having a title, but they don't have the piece of land. Another one is occupying the land, but they don't have the title. A case of a piece of land in Moiben called Crowley, they are always fighting. For example, during the planting season, one team will go and plant the land. During harvesting, a different team will go to harvest the maize. So it's a problem. So and how I wish such institutions like the ministry should streamline so that we don't encounter such problems. On the issue of projects, incomplete projects, Mr. Speaker, this is something which is very rampant in Kenya. We have a case of Mutiani House, which was begun even before I became a teacher. Once upon a time, Mr. Speaker, I was a teacher in high school, and we were being told about a Mutiani House, which was being constructed. I have been able to pursue my education to the level of becoming a professor, to the level of becoming a member of parliament, but we are still talking about the same project, which is 31 years ago, Mutiani House. And it is a common occurrence in most of parts of Kenya. And you see, when the project is delayed, a lot of money is wasted, and restarting it over and over again becomes problematic. So how I wish such projects, or when the government is planning to do any project, it should plan, put sufficient funds, and make sure that the project is completed within the stipulated time. Mr. Speaker, on the case of consultancies, rightly so, this committee actually captured it very vividly. So many of the expenses in most projects or in most of these institutions is to do with consultancies. People are always carrying out projects, they conceptualize, it takes a lot of time and a lot of money. By the time the real project is going to be implemented or to start, a lot of money has gone down the drain on just architectural works, drawings, consultants, exchange of information here and there, and it is annoying, Mr. Speaker, that at the end of the day, it takes the bulk of the resources allocated. A case in point is an institution in my constituency, Moiben Technical Teachers College. We started as a teachers training college, but midway, it has been overtaken by time. We are now rerouting it to Kenya School of Technical Training College, because we are having quite a number of technical institutions springing up, and they don't have capacity, so we want to start training trainers. So, Mr. Speaker, such projects take a long time. Even the people who conceptualize the idea, even the people who are supposed to benefit from the project, might not even, it takes a long time. People get tired. So, how I wish such the people who do it diligently and make sure that they complete within the shortest time possible, so that they will be value for money. Mr. Speaker, finally is on the issue of ethnic diversity, and also to add on it, gender diversity. It is very sad that of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, and those are the issues which we should be looking at other issues which are non-issues. The crux of the matter is in this document, Mr. Speaker. And finally, I would just want to say, I come from Uasin Gishu County, where the saga of the scholarships, Finland, Canada, and so forth. If due diligence is done or oversight is done, such problems or parents and students wouldn't have be encountering such problems. And I also want to thank this committee because of this timely report. When you look at the date, Mr. Speaker, it is between 2018
to 2021, a span of 3 years, Mr. Speaker, we must commend them because it is always good to do due diligence when there is still sufficient time, other than we come in when things have already gone AY. With those few observations, Mr. Speaker, I support this team and thank the committee once more. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, before I give the next speaker, who will be the Honorable Canon Dr. Naomi Wako, the Member of Parliament for Marsabit, let me recognize the following institutions within the House of Parliament. Loboen Primary School, Keio South Constituency, Elgeyo Marakwet County, Selengei Girls Boarding Primary School, Narok North Constituency in Narok County. The Speaker of the National Assembly, the Right Honorable Moses Wetangula, welcomes you to the House. Thank you very much. Honorable Naomi Wako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for giving me this opportunity once again, as I also congratulate the committee, Public Investment Committee report on governance, education. I also want to appreciate the effort of the chairman, Honorable Wanami Wamboka. I hope I have pronounced your names well. I want to congratulate him for that great work that he has done to bring out the observations that the committee has made, and also to serve this House in the best possible way. This clearly shows that the committee has given its best to this work and the report, and also committed a lot of time. Mr. Speaker, as we all know, members of parliament are very happy, and especially honorable members on the other side have been very busy serving Kenyans in this house, great house of parliament, and also doing mandamanos for the last many days. So we congratulate them for finding time to come up with such a document that enlightens the entire nation, and that is also beneficial to all of us. The report that they have compiled is beneficial to all of us. It has also served us as a wake-up call, because the report captures and reveals so many things that has gone on and funny practices that has been there. And in their report, Mr. Speaker, some of the issues they have brought up, like the land owned by the various institutions, were not secured. This is quite strange, Mr. Speaker, because if there is a school somewhere, if there is an institution, a learning institution somewhere, the first thing that one ought to do is to make sure that the land belongs to that particular institution. The ownership of any land or of any piece of land in this country is very important. But ignoring that then means that you are giving or creating an opportunity for somebody to grab the land or encroach. That has happened in the past, and many schools have been inconvenienced, and many public lands or public or private property have been lost in that manner. And so even for them to cite this and say that a lot of land that needed to have been owned by those institutions, the issue of ownership has not been well captured. And in order for us to overcome that, in every institution, every part of this country, I know there are many schools that are on lands that they have not secured. My advice is please make sure that the piece of land that you have built any school belongs to that particular school, and register everything in the proper way. The other thing, again, they have shown us clearly is the skewed ethnic diversity within their staff, and especially senior management.
Mr. Speaker, some of us that come from the areas that have been marginalized for the last many years, even if you do not want to use this word marginalized, we keep referring to it because it is a fact that we cannot run away from. Those of us who come from northern Kenya, northern part of Kenya, even when people speak of these great jobs, great opportunities in the country, for us to be remembered, it is like a miracle has to take place. And so this observation is a true thing that they have brought out. And what do we need to do as August House? We need to demand that in every institution, in every ministry, we want to see the face of this country. There are people who have always been there, and it is like they own the entire nation, they own the ministries, and they own everything that belongs to this country. Those of us who are not as many as those ones also need our shares. And that is why today I stand to support this committee report and say they have done their job very well. And there must be some action that has to follow this great report that they have tabled before us. Again, Mr. Speaker, they have said the other observation that they have made is failure to submit supportive documentation to the Auditor General. Mr. Speaker, we have always complained, and this nation has suffered because of corruption. Corruption that has been there since independence. Corruption that some of us, if we speak about it today, we feel embarrassed because you are a leader and you wouldn't want to get close to anything that, you know, has an element of corruption in it. But corruption has eaten this country. It has become like the cancer that we debated on last week, that is finishing the people of our nation, that is taking away the great lives of our people. And in the same way, corruption is finishing our economy. It's turning this country to be a poor country. Mr. Speaker, in many institutions, in many ministries, a lot of tenders that are distributed, sometimes, and most of the times, goes to the families, to the relatives. And most of the time, they don't even supply, they don't even do the work in the proper way. And what we can say today is, can the due diligence be followed in every tender work? I want to congratulate our Kenya Kwanza government, as I also congratulate our president, who has come out clearly and said that he will not condone any corruption. In fact, Kenya Kwanza, and as one of the leaders, I must say that I'm very happy with this report that we have been given today. And I will not support any corrupt leader. Personally, I will not support, even if it is my brother. And even if it is my close friend, I will not support. And I will be supporting any report that you give us. Because unless we overcome the problem of corruption in this country, there is no way we will have a better future. Another observation that they have made is accountant officers were ignorant of non-compliant with very important documents, with various provisions of PFM Act of 2012, Public Audit Act of 2015. Surely, if these people were not compliant, if these people were ignorant, why would they remain in those offices? And that is why today we should say that those officers, if they are still in those offices, should leave their offices and create space for others who are ready to work, who are not corrupt, who are not ready to, just ignore some very important provisions or acts and then destroy this country. Mr. Speaker, a lot has happened. Our country has suffered because we have done many things wrong. But that era is gone. I want to promise the nation today that under Kenya Kwanza leadership, we will not condone any corruption. And our president will be at the forefront to fight any corruption. But for those officers who practice, who do those things that are not acceptable, and they remain in those offices, I want to urge the committee to do a recommendation that those officers leave the offices so that proper investigations are done. And if they are not qualified for the job, as we know in many of our offices, we have officers who are not qualified. We have people with fake certificates. And there are people who have, who have great skills in doing that. Some of us cannot even imagine of having a fake certificate. But for some people, it is their belief and it is their practice. In fact, they should say that all the people holding any office must have the proper certificates and must be qualified for the job that they are doing. And those particular officers should vacate so that they create enough space for people to do proper investigation so that we get the right people in the offices. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Dr. Naomi Wako, for those presentations. Allow me again, honorable members, to recognize the following institutions in the Speaker's Gallery. This Friends School from Webuye West constituency in Bungoma County, Mugunana Secondary School, Tarakaniti South, Tarakaniti County, and then we have Kaboson Girls in Chepalungu constituency, Bomet County. The Speaker of National Assembly, the Honorable Moses Wetangula, welcomes you to the House of Parliament. The Honorable David Mboni, the MP for Kitui Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to support the report by the Committee of Public Investment and Governance on Governance and Education, led by my brother, Jack. Jack, it's not that Jack is the first-term member, but I think he's competent enough. And any other member who comes to Parliament, so long as you are learned, you have gone to proper schools. Yes, you have gone to proper schools. And I like what Mheshimiwa Wako has said. So long as you don't have fake degrees, papers, you can really do very well in any committee. And I also want to say that Zach is also as
Did you suggest that some members have fake papers?
I'm not saying that, but you know,
Proceed,
even this,
Honorable Boni.
Yes.
What is out of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And indeed, you've alluded the real issue, because it's an honorable house, and all members who are here are actually duly honorable members who have been elected and been given responsibility to discharge mandate on behalf of the people. Does the honorable member here imply, in relation to the standing order, that some members here are fake indeed, and it is on record? And I should ask you to call upon the honorable member to withdraw that statement forthwith as he proceeds to prosecute this matter.
Actually, I will not withdraw, because the statement, I was quoting what honorable member Kwako said. So I was quoting that. So, Mheshimiwa, I think the first thing you should do, just deal with the scholarship scandal in Washingishu, whereby you are you are the CEC of finance. First of all, deal with that one. And I want to thank the first Parliament.
Honorable Mboni.
Yes.
Honorable Mboni, a member cannot stand on a point of order. Then you raise an issue which may call for another point of order. I thought you were simply going to say that you didn't mention a specific member in terms of fake material. And general, presentations do not undermine your presentations. Now, when you introduce those others of other places outside Parliament, it becomes a problem. In terms of fairness to your colleague, I think that part you should withdraw.
Okay, let me withdraw that part, Honorable Chair. And I was saying I want to thank the top Parliament for dividing the PIC committee into 3, so that at least the workload can be reduced. Chair, Honorable Speaker, I want to do my presentation in 2 parts. One, general overview of parastatals in this country, and then the report findings on education sector. Mr. Speaker, there are over 260 public parastatals across all the sectors of this country, which were formed independence. And they are in each and every sector of this economy because they were supposed to bridge gaps which private sector wholesome. Some of these parastatals, like Kenya Power and Lighting Company, KenGen, KPA, Central Bank of Kenya, KRA, they were very strategic when they were being formed. And they are still playing the role which they were formed for. However, others, their roles have been overtaken by events. This is a parastatal called Kenya National Trading Company, which is only this year when I heard about it, but I knew it a long time ago, which was supposed to do distribution of commodities, especially food in this country, but with this time it was overtaken by events. So, and most of these parastatals are actually a burden to the exchequer. You remember Kenya KQ, Kenya Airways? Last parliament, because I was in a committee of finance and national planning, and which I'm still, we give this parastatal over 40 billion to build it out. And not only this one, so many other parastatals become headache. So up to now, I think as a country, under the current administration, we need to look at these parastatals and see if they are really relevant to the current needs of this country. And if they are not, we just need to sell them and forget about them. Because currently they are taking a lot of money from exchequer, where this money could be used for important socio-economic provision for our people, like water, where I come from, where other members come from, especially from the ASO and some arid areas. Going back to the report findings, I like the findings which this committee has come up, but at times you start wondering how these accounting officers were recruited. Even accounting officer, if you are an accounting officer, you must have accountants, qualified accountants, who should be doing your work. And if you are CEO of a parastatal, you should be having basic accounting, you should understand basic accounting principles, and should have basic accounting knowledge so that at least you can understand and appreciate accounting. But this one points out to what the report is saying. When people are recruited based on ethnicity and corruption, then this is where the country we are finding ourselves in. You employ people who do not even qualify to be in those positions. So, so as a country, we need to employ people based on competence so that we can get the quality of our money. And that's why most of these parastatals are not performing. Because if they cannot even account for the money they have, how are they going to perform? So, Chair, I think the current administration, they should be able to start employing people who are qualified. Chair, the unsecured and untitled land holdings, this is a room, this is basically a room for grabbing. And most of the schools have lost, and colleges, they have lost land because they don't even own titles. And the government, the government should come up with a policy whereby government institutions are given titles free of charge. If you ask me, a primary school in my constituency, and you are asking those poor parents to raise 200,000, where are they going to get that money from? So the government should be able to give these schools and institutions titles free of charge. They don't need to charge them, because why do you have to charge a government institution the money going to exchequer, and tomorrow you are taking that money back to the school? So I think my proposal is that we don't require to charge for title deeds for government institutions. Long-standing constructions, basically these are construction works which were not planned. Because if there's a proper planning, then you should not have uncompleted buildings. Buildings should be planned, budget should be planned such a way that there is a budget provision to complete the project. And I'll tell you why this country we are in debt. It's because we have so many uncompleted projects, and most of these projects, we have actually borrowed money from donors. Now you are paying for something which you are not even benefiting from it. So I think the first thing the government treasury should give enough allocation for complete of these projects which are not completed. Lack of equity on employment, I think these are very serious things, and we are actually seeing it. We are seeing it. Look at power sector currently. The CS is from where? Kenya Power from where? Kenya Pipeline from where? Kengen from where? Just from same, yeah? Yes, they are just from the same language. So we are repeating the same thing which we have been talking about. So this Kenya belongs to all of us, and we need to base our employment on competence, not on tribes. And we also have to take care of
Honorable Irene Mayaka, nominated MP.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, before I give my remarks in support of this particular report, I'd just like to take a minute to, on behalf of the people of Nyamira, because yesterday was a dark day in our county. We did lose the leader of majority in Nyamira County Assembly, the Honorable Elijah Osiemo, to a road accident. And I'd like to express my sincere condolences, because the Honorable Elijah not only comes from Nyamira, but he also comes from my home constituency of West Mogirango, and also to express and ask Kenyans to join us to pray for the Honorable Duke Masira and the Honorable Priscilla, who are both hospitalized at the Aga Khan Hospital in Nairobi, and we wish them quick recovery. Honorable Speaker, having said that, I'll proceed on to support this particular report. And Honorable Speaker, a lot has been said about the chair of the committee, that he is a first-timer who has proved that he is very competent. But I also just want to tell this committee that I have known Honorable Jack for over 20 years, and both of us have been under the tutelage of a very competent politician in this country, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. So it is no surprise that he's as competent as he is. It's because he comes from a very good school of political knowledge, and also a school that tells you that you must always be accountable to your people. Honorable Speaker, some of the recommendations that the committee has made, and for me, my particular concern, in this country, we have a body that oversees lawyers, the LSK body. We have a body that oversees doctors. And us who are accountants and certified public secretaries, we also have the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya and the Institute of Certified Public Secretaries of Kenya, who are the bodies that ideally are meant to oversee and ensure that these accountants that are in place are actually doing their work. Honorable Speaker, it worries me because number one thing that I would wish to know is the people who are accountants, the fact that they're not doing their job well. Are they registered members of ISPAC? Number two, are they going for continuous training with these bodies? And one of the recommendations says that the government should capacity build these people. But I know that the government does not have the capability of training and retraining accountants. This should be done by the bodies that oversee them. And therefore, I just want to encourage the committee that even as you give a recommendation that they need to go for continuous training, please also ensure that they are guided and that they are registered as members of the bodies that oversee accountants in this country. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, accounting is a very sensitive issue. This is the person who oversees and checks if there are any spillovers, any embezzlement that are being done in these institutions. And the institutions that the committee lists are very serious committees. These are the committees that oversee education and especially higher education in our country. How do we know that we are not having embezzlement of funds, that we are not having gaps in terms of institutional management, when we already have people who it is claimed that they are not even competent in what they do? Honorable Speaker, we have been told by the committee that Section 68 of the PFM Act is not being followed. This is an extremely serious offense, Honorable Speaker. It's like saying that a lawyer who comes, an advocate who comes to testify and to support their matter in court are not following specific regulations in the law. And therefore, they should actually be disbarred when they don't do that. That's a very serious offense. And I do hope that the punitive measures that the committee is actually proposing are in such a manner that it teaches a lesson and it passes a very strong message to anyone who tries to go against it. Honorable Speaker, I also like the fact that they're recommending that only projects that have guaranteed funding should ideally be funded. Because we don't have to have a situation where we are having so many projects that have been started, so many projects that have been stalled, and there is no funding, or in other situations, funding has actually been provided, but because it has not been accounted for properly, we don't know where the money has gone. Honorable Speaker, right now we are having situations where you find even in county governments that there are so many pending bills in place for even roads, but those roads are not even there. So people are claiming money for things that they've not done. So I just want the committee to go further and actually check and see which projects are these that have stalled and were they even allocated money. Honorable Speaker, and finally on the issue of gender, ethnicity, and regional balance, and the Honorable David Mboni, my senior, alluded to this. Honorable Speaker, you know, it's very sad that in this country, we have a whole sector, the energy sector, that can actually conduct its board meetings in one language. Because we have every person that leads that particular sector coming from one community in this country. Honorable Speaker, as we talk right now, we've had situations in the last 9 months, and I want to be very frank about this, where we are having employment opportunities, including as permanent secretaries in this country, but majority of those people are coming from one community. Honorable Speaker, this is an issue that we have to speak about.
What is out of order?
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. As I would respect my counterpart, is a CPL like me, and of course he understands matters to do with evidence in every statement we make. As per the standing order, I would wish that the honorable member substantiates the statement she has made that energy sector is run by one community, that they can prosecute matters in their vernacular language. That is very, statement is very... You've
asked for substantiation,
yes,
Honorable Mayaka, substantiate?
Yes, because the energy sector has got several sagas in it.
No, don't respond. You done. Honorable Mayaka, substantiate or withdraw.
Honorable Speaker, you know, some of these issues are just a Google away. For example, Kenya Power, the CEO comes from one community. Geothermal, the CEO comes from one community. Energy regulation, the CEO comes from one community. The Kalenjin community. But it's true. It's a Google away, Honorable Speaker. Why are we denying these matters? Kenya Pipeline, the CEO comes from one community. That is why I'm saying all these people, when they're having a meeting on matters energy, they can actually conduct their proceedings in one language.
Honorable Ubaya, what is out of order?
From that same community.
Honorable Speaker, you know, it's very unfortunate that just because someone bears a name that resembles another person, how do you know that person is from that ethnic community? You know, Honorable Speaker, we should not use names as a basis to say, Kaluma, even in my community, there is a person called Kaluma. It doesn't mean that Kaluma is Luo. It doesn't mean, so in that substantiation, I think the best thing
Honorable
is for this to withdraw.
What substantiation requires of you, Order Honorable Owen, is to give us the names of the members of the community you are talking about and confirmation of the community they belong to.
Honorable Speaker,
Absent that, I'll require you to withdraw that part of
Honorable
your statement.
Speaker, I will bring you the specific names tomorrow, and you will allow me to table them in this parliament.
Would that suffice?
And lineage to
Yes,
show,
yes.
you know.
It's okay.
Lineage to show.
Their details are on public knowledge, including the village. I will bring the information here tomorrow.
I know the standing orders allow for presentation of such information. Is it to the next date? But Honorable Irene Mayaka, is this something that should actually take our time, substantive time tomorrow?
Yes, it is. It is a serious matter, Honorable Speaker, because it is a substantive matter in this particular report on gender and ethnicity and regional balance in this country. And Honorable Speaker,
I thought we were debating the report. And the
this
report
is a
concerns
point
the
in the
education
report.
sector, not the energy sector.
It is part of the particular report.
Does it allow for substantiation? Do they follow? Honorable Irene Mayaka, you'll be substantiating, in line with our standing orders, the statement that critical leaders in the energy ministry or energy sectors come from one community.
Much obliged, Honorable Speaker. I will
Tomorrow.
do that. Yes, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, these people have stolen my time.
When Parliament sits.
Much
when
obliged.
Parliament sits tomorrow afternoon, when the Speaker who would be presiding will grant necessary leave that you do so.
Much obliged, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, you may proceed to conclude.
I kindly request that that clock be returned back to Amber because my time has been stolen by very many people.
Wind up. Wind up. We are running out of time.
Honorable Speaker, I just want, because that was my very last point, I'd just like to reference it back to point number 25 from the committee that speaks to failure to adhere to gender, ethnicity, regional balance, and other considerations in staffing. That is where I was referencing my point to. And Honorable Speaker, you know very well that I'm a very sharp girl. I don't just say things that I don't know about. I thank you.
Honorable Fatuma Mohamed, the MP for Migori County, followed by Honorable Beatrice Adagala in that order.
My time is going, Mr. Speaker.
You'll certainly get time to speak. Honorable Millie Odhiambo, Honorable, in fact, everybody in the House will get time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I use my time? First, Mr. Speaker, I would like to register my apology as the chair for Special Funds Accounts Committee. We had a sitting today at Boma Hotel. Unfortunately, the sitting went took a lot of the time, and we finished our meeting 1:45. For that reason, we were not able to reach here in good time and present our report. So please do not mark us absent. We had the PS for State Department for Petroleum and DG for EPRA, and that took a lot of time. We are sorry about that. We request that you give us a later date to present our report. Special Funds Accounts Committee. Mr. Speaker, I support this recommendation. I support this report.
Honorable Fatuma, your apology for being out of the House on other businesses, when the report you are to lay was ordered to proceed, is granted by the House and unduly recorded.
Thank you, Mr.
You can proceed
Speaker.
to contribute to this one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this report, I support it. I just felt that there are points that I have a feeling must have been missed out, and it's the report on the disabled. We all know that the disabled are not given equal opportunity to other Kenyans. And I would recommend that also they should be considered. Equally, there are very good disabled people who have gone to school well, who have very good papers, but unfortunately, they don't get an opportunity to be given opportunity to serve in this country. The youth equally have this issue, that whenever we put out advertisement for jobs, we do put that we want working experience 20, 10, 5, 15 years. A young man or woman who has just left university has no experience other than the experience she or he had in class. And so we lock them out, and we end up giving people who who have experience but bad experience that does not add value to that office where they're employed. Because you can see here they're saying there are some officers who are incompetent, yet those officers have been there for years. So why not give our youth an opportunity to work and not ask for working experience of several years, that some of the years they were not even born, some were still in school at that time. Mr. Speaker, the issue of constructions that take too long, in some cases, it is, I would say, corruption, that the institution work it out with the contractor, that the payment is delayed, and in the contract it is said that once you've delayed for this particular months or days, we should take you to court so that you pay as interest. As the matter goes on in court, Kenyans lose their money because the story will go for long in court, and eventually the person is awarded. By the time he starts working again, the award is more than even the contract itself. And again, he starts working, they're not able to pay him, he runs back to court, and the property will never get finished to the period that was agreed. And the officers know quite well that this is a problem for Kenyans, and they continue doing it. It happens more in our counties, that a contractor is given a job, a contractor who cannot even do the job. And a small issue is taken to court to take our time. Remember, the lawyer will be paid for his appearance. The county will lose money because the project shall have stalled. Eventually, the court will award, and it just goes circles to lose our money. On the event of one tribe taking an office, it is one thing that if you start talking from morning to evening, it is a sad story. I thank God that the pupil and the students who are in this house have left, because had they had this, I think they would have stopped going to school tomorrow. Truly, it is unfortunate that one tribe, without shame, fear of God, can employ one particular tribe of their own tribe without shame. And I'm not referring to Kalenjins only. It happens even to Kikuyus, it happens to Luas, it happens to all these major tribes. The tribes that suffer most are the minority. Look at the Kurians. How many are employed in this government? I think one. Look at the Pokots. Look at the Mijikendas, the minority of this country. But because there's no sister or a brother who has been given a big position, his sisters or tribesmen will not get an opportunity because there's nobody there. But I tell you again, give a Mijikenda an opportunity to serve, the secretary will be a Mijikenda, the officer below and below will be the same tribe. So I think as Kenyans, we need to have a sober debate on this. It is not just blaming that other tribe only, but also blame my own tribe, that all tribes are equal. And let us go back to what our Bible and the Quran teaches us. But brotherhood is not only where you're called Otieno and she's Atieno, or where you are Kamau and she's Wanjiko. A brother is a brother as long as you share the same country. Let us give all Kenyans an opportunity to serve in this country. And this is why we have incompetency, because as a tribe A, I just want to employ my tribes. And I even say, and I'm sorry to say, a member told me that as Kalenjins, we've been out of power for so long, give us an opportunity to employ our people. I feel sad when I hear such statement, because me as a Luo, I've never sad. My president has never been there who is a Luo. So when will I get an opportunity to employ Luos or a Somali? I find it sad when a Kenyan thinks like that.
Honorable Fatuma, are you done?
No, I'm not done, but he has this habit of interfering with people. You had an opportunity to speak. We listen to you. Please give people opportunity also to debate. Mr. Speaker, I am not pointing at one particular tribe. I think we are 45 tribes. We all deserve to get an opportunity. Maybe I will continue praying that one day a Pokot will be a president, a Mijikenda will be a president, a Somali will be a president, the minority, so that they can also employ their people and we meet somewhere equal. Would that be a wise prayer? No. I say as long as a Kalenjin is a president, may Alua Fatuma Mohammed also be a minister. May Atieno also be a secretary of a Kalenjin or a Kikuyu or any other tribe. Mr. Speaker, I say this with a lot of pain, that our children are going to school. Imagine a Pokot taking his or her child to school. The pain of selling her cows because she has never gotten an opportunity to take a child to school. That particular child will finish school but will not get a job because there's no president who is a Pokot, there's no director who is a Pokot or any other position. It is unfair. And fellow tribesmen, Luos, Kikuyu, or any other tribe, tomorrow you'll not be in power. 20 years maybe your tribe will not be in power. Think of what will happen to your children and grandchildren if they will be locked out because their tribe are not in power. I request fellow Kenyans to treat Kenyans and as brothers and sisters and stop putting this tribal thing into action.
Honorable Beatrice Adagala.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to also speak on this report, the first report of the Public Investment Committee on Governance and Education, which is chaired by Honorable Wamboka. And most people normally think that monos cannot come out with a report. This is a report that is so well done, and I want to congratulate Honorable Wamboka and his committee members and the members of that committee for the good work they have done. This committee, I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that they have done a good job. They have handled several government bodies, institutions, and they have come up with a very good report, which we are discussing now. Mr.
I want to discourage our raising points of order because you are eating into time of colleagues, and time is fast running out against the interest I still see from the members here. Unless it is critical, like Parliament is going to ban, Honorable Kimilio, I would request you abandon. If it is so serious, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is very important. We have been here since 2, Mr. Speaker. Can I move that we speak for only 5 minutes, so that every member can get a chance to contribute? Because
Yeah,
it's very important.
In terms of procedures of the House, that can only be moved at the beginning of the motion. But I would request members, out of your courtesy for one another, if you can consolidate, even within 3 minutes, let the members who have been waiting also speak. Proceed, Honorable Beatrice Adagala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and even he has wasted my time. I could be through, because you're wasting time with orders for what? Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you. I want to thank Honorable Wamboka. He has done a very good job. This coming from a mono, I'm very sure, Mr. Speaker, sir, if encouraged, they are now going to prove to those who the so-called who normally say they are ranking members. Congratulations, Honorable Wamboka. You've done a very good job, and I want to commend you on this. I'm also requesting you don't carry stones on the streets, because this kind of work you have done here, you deserve to be in this chamber all the time doing this kind of work. Congratulations. Mr. Speaker, sir, protect me from Gesa. Gesa, you are a senior high-ranking member. Please give me time to speak.
You are protected under the.
You have spoken in this chamber for many years. Let me now have my time to speak, Honorable Mabona. Mr. Speaker, sir, she's making me get confused.
What is the relationship between Honorable Beatrice Adagala and Honorable Millie Odhiambo?
You know, Mr. Speaker, sir,
Honorable,
I want to speak here.
Honorable Millie Odhiambo, two people cannot speak in Parliament at the same time. Honorable Adagala will speak with your silence.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you. I know she's overexcited. She's my aunt. I'm uncle to the Subas. So she's very happy to see the daughter speaking and taking over from her, because I know with her, she's now handing over the mantle to me. And I've now known the time she comes to Parliament, I'll be always in this chamber at this time, so that you see the mother versus the daughter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me go back to this report. This is a very well done report, and I want to recommend it. I want to see the officers, like the Public Procurement Act, being followed to the latter. Let these officers not float rules. We have seen, Mr. Speaker, most of these officers are floating rules and making Kenya or the government lose a lot of money. If you can find a public officer awarding a company that cannot work, why should that officer be in the office? Like there are companies that have been awarded tenders and are not completing those tenders. We went to Industrial to check on a building that has taken so many years to complete. Even the contractor has withdrawn, but they are so-called these people, consultants. The contractor has withdrawn from the site. A consultant is still there, making money, charging the government for nothing, making the government to incur expenses. I think these oversight groups, these oversight committees, if they can be serious, Mr. Speaker, sir, and be followed, I'm sure we are going to save money as a country and it will improve our economy. I want to commend the all committees that are oversighting these parastatals, government offices, to be very keen on the auditor's reports, because we have seen so far there are several organizations that have embezzled funds, stolen money through poor tendering processes. They cannot follow the public acts of 2015. They're just doing their own things. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's high time the oversight committees take charge of these organizations, work on the auditors, the general auditors' reports. Some of the companies or the organizations that have gone against the rules, the people in charge should be surcharged if the government is going to lose money in this kind of manner, Mr. Speaker, sir. The way I've told you, we went to another government institute here in Australia. The contractor has left. Why do we have the consultant on the site? Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to ask the people responsible for oversight, instead of us, or instead of my Aunt Millie Odhiambo being on the street, she's a renowned lawyer and a senior for you, she should be in this house and assist with matters of oversight. Once the government is put on checks and balances, I'm very sure we shall save a lot of money. There will be no corruption. Everything will be, the government will be working and the opposition will be working. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want also to leave time for my aunt, and I know she's going to talk here, and I'll be oversighting her as she talks. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to leave on this. I support Wamboka and the committee. Keep up, Honorable Wamboka, and as a party leader of ANC, I'm welcoming you in ANC. I don't want you to be independent. Thank you.
Honorable Joshua Kimilu and Honorable Millie Odhiambo, in that order. And I would request you do 3 minutes so that we can proceed to the next slide.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In 3 minutes, bang your point on this report. It is a record of Parliament.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Wamboka for the good job and the committee they have done. This is a very important job that done to Kenyans. And I want to support the report, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue of land, for example, Mr. Speaker, to get a title deed is a nightmare, Mr. Speaker. I've done 3 police stations in my constituency, and to get a title deed, it has been taken long, because when you go to the ministry, there's a lot of procedures which are not necessary, Mr. Speaker. And I cannot get security to my area because of those delays. So, Mr. Speaker, that is a challenge we are facing as a country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the issue of procurement, there's a lot of unnecessary procedures which delays our contractors. People are getting loans to go and do the works. And Mr. Speaker, they are delayed because of those funny procedures, which someone can take even some months without getting payment, which, Mr. Speaker, it becomes a scam at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the issue of employment, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that employment should be on competence, gender, and also regional balances, Mr. Speaker. It is true, Mr. Speaker, it's not just a mere discussion, Mr. Speaker. It is true that when you look our country, what is happening for the last 1 year, Mr. Speaker, you get only 1 or 2 tribes, and we are for 2 tribes in this country, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this is very bad. We are going to get unquality work, Mr. Speaker, and it is very important, Mr. Speaker, to consider all the tribes in Kenya, because we not choose to be born where we are, Mr. Speaker. We found ourselves there, and Mr. Speaker, it's not a mistake. And we have the right as a country, because we own this country, all of us, Mr. Speaker. So this is, Mr. Speaker, unfair. When you go to issue of security, Mr. Speaker, when we were busy, Kenyans were busy doing maandamano, which is their right, Mr. Speaker. Police were there shooting innocent Kenyans, killing them, which is unconstitutional, Mr. Speaker. And I can say this is bad, and we should not allow such a thing to happen in our country. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, this institution needs to be regulated, and something needs to be done, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, because some colleagues want also to contribute, I just want to say thank you for the committee, and I support the report. Thank you.
Honorable Emilio Diambo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I just want to refer to something that the late Honorable Tieno Kajwang used to talk about when he was campaigning, when he was alive. And he used to say that when they were growing up, they used to use the old system of music. I don't know what it's called. And sometimes it would get stuck at some point. So if they were playing a song called Anditi, then the song would just go, Anditi, Anditi, Anditi. It doesn't move until you come and remove it physically and put it ahead. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of ethnicity and corruption, Kenya has become an Anditi system. Because since I came into this parliament, almost every day we talk about the issue of corruption, the issue of ethnicity. So let me just start by thanking the chair. Here people are referring to him as a mono. You are not a mono. When you are here in parliament, you are here by right, and you are not a mono. You are elected because your people had faith in you. Mr. Speaker, I also just want to tell him that I want to encourage him. Use your intellectual capabilities to demonstrate. You are being told don't throw stones. Throw your intellectual stones, and you are throwing your intellectual stones very well. So again, don't be intimidated by people who are telling you not to throw stones. Some of us have thrown intellectual stones. That's why we are here. I don't want to use ranking member because the corruption here has made sure that there is no rankingness in this house. But Mr. Speaker, I just want to indicate, I want to also read a poem by Henry Barlow that we studied in high school. Your nails are black with that, brother. It's called, I refuse to take your brotherly hand. Mr. Speaker, it says, your nails are black with that, brother, and your palms are clammy with sweat. I refuse to take the hand you extend. I shall not join hands with you, brother. For unclean hands make me uneasy. For filthy fingernails rob me of my pride. You argue, gesticulating with your once impeccably clean and beautiful hands, that before long it shall not matter, for everybody is delving and digging, and all shall have hands dripping with dirt. Your nails are black with dirt, brother, and your palms are clammy with sweat. I refuse to take the hand you extend in help. I shall not join your hands with you, brother, for unclean hands make me uneasy. You argue, oh no, I'd say that nobody shall know clean hands look like, and there shall be comfort in the dirty crowd. Are you going blind, brother? I ask, how many have the sludge, or the strong and bold hands like yours, with which to dig and delve? Brother, the hand of many are too weak with hunger. That's why we are giving rice and meat. And for many, the sludge is out of reach. And yet for others, the stink is too nauseating. But all have eyes, and hunger fills them with anger as they watch your fingernails filled with dirt. I've actually had some people speak here and say that the KK government is committed to eliminating corruption. Yet we are seeing, Mr. Speaker, people are being pardoned for corrupt cases. People who have been convicted are being given the power of mercy on corrupt cases, including a case where a person who even defiled a child, a rapist, has been let free, and you are telling us KK government is committed to eliminating corruption. What corruption? Unless you actually mean that they are committed to entrenching corruption, then that way we will be speaking with you the same language. And Mr. Speaker, on the issue of ethnicity, I want to say that we came up with the National Cohesion and Integration Act. I played a very significant role in that act, Mr. Speaker. All that we need to do is to make sure that that act is implemented. What does it require? Political goodwill. And here we are, and the opposition, you are the ones who are expecting us to implement that. There is a law. Implement that law. And I'm even hearing a member who is misinformed, telling us that as opposition we should come here and do oversight. Do you know your role as a legislator? It's legislative representation and oversight. Do not come here and mislead yourself thinking you are in the executive. You are not. Your role is like that of Millie Odhiambo, oversight. So oversight this government, ensure that it does proper work. Mr. Speaker, I just want to speak to another issue that a lot of us, I know I am one of the luckiest people in this country because I am a member of a minority community and also a member of a majority community. My mother is Luo, my father is Suba. And as a Suba, we are a minority. And Mr. Speaker, one of the things that I've seen that apply to some communities that call themselves minority, they have gotten a lion's share, more than even some majority communities have got. And they keep coming here every time and saying, we are minority. And they are given minority, added minority. Now they are the majority. You may be minority in numbers, but you are majority in representation. So, Mr. Speaker, what we need to do is the National Cohesion and Integration Commission needs to let us know representation vis-a-vis the population so that you don't keep shouting you are a minority when you are not a minority. Mr. Speaker, I want to give you an example about the first time I came into this parliament. And when I came here, I was as a very proud Suba. That's why I'm called Geza Geza. Because in Suba, Geza Geza means the finest of the finest. So I'm the finest, and I'm a very proud Suba. And Mr. Speaker, when I came here, some people had started a propaganda which they were using to target the Prime Minister then, saying that the Prime Minister does not favor Subas. Mr. Speaker, I've heard them saying that again. And I want to repeat what I told them then, that when he was a Prime Minister, the person who was in charge of hiring people in this office and the staff, the Chief of Staff, is one Karoli Omondi, now Member of Parliament. The Assistant Minister in his office was none other than John Badi, a Suba. Those two are Subas. And then there was also Kasuku, who was his economic advisor as Suba. I was nominated as Suba. Mr. Speaker, Silas Jakakimba was the person managing his diary, another Suba. There are so many Subas that have benefited because of that, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I am talking about ethnic balance, which has been mentioned in this report.
You're on a point of order. Yeah, what is out of order?
Is on fire. We need to cool her down. What he's actually saying is that the former Prime Minister practiced nepotism or tribalism by hiring people. All the people as mentioned are from the same region. And then she will stand here and say that other people have hired people from the same community. But she's indicting the former Prime Minister that in his office, he only put people from Nyanza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. He has tried, but I would give him 2 out of 10. In his attempt, he's not doing very well there. The former Prime Minister, not even former, is a Prime Minister because there's none that has been after him. The Prime Minister is a Luo and also related to the Luyas. He's not a Suba. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, he was not being biased. And you can find somebody like Isaac Mwawura. I was just giving the example of Suba. I can get into Kikuyu as well. I can tell you how many Kikuyus he appointed. I can tell you how many Kalenjins he appointed. I can tell you how many Kambas he appointed. Don't joke with that man. Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga has done well for this country. Even yourself, Owen Baya, you got your position vis-a-vis Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. And that is why sometimes you still wear blue, because in your heart you know you are very Azimio. It is just that because you know that this side is eating so much, you are also hoping that you can go and eat. But otherwise, you know very well that Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, there is nobody as fairer than Raila Amolo Odinga. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that this report...
Diambo, do you want to be informed?
No, I don't want to be informed.
Honorable Millie
Mr. Speaker,
information.
as you can see, Mr. Speaker, I am a lawyer with a master's from New York University. There is nothing you can inform me. I'm fairly intelligent and knowledgeable on issues of governance and corruption. And then I'm a ranking member, so I have a history of this parliament. I can teach you and educate you about things that have gone on and the things that are continuing to go on. And in finishing, Mr. Speaker, we cannot talk about corruption without mentioning that there is a Inspector General can tell us that there are people who are trafficking in persons and is seated in his office. Then why are you Inspector General? You want me to be the one to arrest those people? Arrest those people, and then we can go with you to court on defamation. Jokers.
Honorable Fatuma Masito and Honorable Dr. Ivo Bara, 2 minutes each.
Basi nikushukuru Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii, na pia nipatie kongole kamati hii ambayo imeleta ripoti hii katika bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, ikija kwa mambo ya utofauti wa makabila, ethnicity and diversity kwa lugha ya Kimombo. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nimetoka katika kaunti ya Kwale ambapo kuna vijana wengi sana Mheshimiwa Spika ambao wamesoma vizuri sana. Lakini unapata kupata nafasi katika nafasi za kitaifa, katika wizara za kitaifa, inakuwa ni kazi ngumu sana kwa sababu wengi wao hawana watu wa kuwashika mkono. Serikali zilizopita, na tuna wasiwasi hata hii serikali iliyopo, kuwa inapatia kipaumbele watu ambao ni wa makabila makubwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, ningeomba Kenya hii iwe na uwiano na kuweza kutambua makabila yale madogo ambayo bado hayajawahi kuingia katika daftari za uongozi, katika daftari za ajira za kitaifa. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia kuna jambo ambalo linatendeka pale katika kaunti ya Kwale. Tuna uwanja wa ndege ambao ni uwanja mdogo, lakini uliratibiwa unatakikana uwe uwanja mkubwa. Swala linalotia utata pale ni kwa sababu ya wale waliopeana hawajapeana ile ardhi kwa upanuzi wa ile uwanja wa ndege mdogo wa Ukunda, ambao ni uwanja upo katika maeneo ya utalii, mahali ambapo watalii wengi wangekuwa wanakuja kuteremka pale. Mheshimiwa Spika, watu wa sehemu ile inaitwa sehemu ya Mkwakwani Ukunda. Watu wale mwaka 1974 mashamba yale yalifanyiwa utafiti na wakaonekana wale wananchi wana haki ya kulipwa ule uwanja ni wao. Kukaja tafiti nyingine ya mwaka 1984, miaka 10 baadaye, watu wale wakaambiwa mashamba yale si yao, na mashamba yale kuna mzungu anaitwa Mackenzie ndio shamba lile lilikuwa lake. Mheshimiwa Spika, dhulma hizi za kijinsia, dhulma hizi za kiubinadamu ambazo zimetendeka hasa katika kaunti ya Kwale, ni lini zitakwisha? Ninamshukuru chairman wa kamati hii ambaye ameleta hoja hii, ripoti hii, na kuweza kuangazia pakubwa dhulma ambazo zinatendeka. Wakwale, Mheshimiwa Spika, wamedhulumika pakubwa na mambo ya mashamba. Wamenyang'anywa mashamba yao. Ukifika ufuo wa bahari kutoka sehemu inaitwa Ng'ombeni mpaka kule Kinondo, utapata mashamba yote yaliyoko ufuo ya bahari yanamilikiwa na watu walioko Nairobi. Watu hata hawajawahi kanyaga mashamba yale, lakini ndio watu wamemiliki mashamba yale. Dhulma hizi Mheshimiwa Spika zitakwisha lini? Ni wakati mwafaka katika serikali hii iliyopo, ikiwa inajigamba kuwa itafanya kazi kweli kuwasaidia wananchi wa taifa hili, iangalie sana sehemu ya Kwale ambayo imedhulumika pakubwa sana. Hususan jambo linalotia uchungu ni swala la mashamba, swala hilo la ajira. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, napenda kuishukuru kamati hii kwa kuleta ripoti hii. Nimeongea kwa haraka kwa sababu ya kuchunga wakati. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Na naunga mkono ripoti hii.
Asante Honorable Fatuma Masito. Honorable Dr. Ivo Bara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And may I to thank you for allowing me or giving me time to also speak on this report, and I support the report. Mr. Speaker, the thread running through this report is very clear. It is demonstration of incompetence, ignorance, and lack of total understanding of even the most basic requirement of running an organization. Simple. Mr. Speaker, we have organs that are supposed to oversight these organizations, and they have come out clearly telling us that even issues of submission of documents for audit has not been done. We have been told that even the submission of the documents themselves are wrong documents. Mr. Speaker, can this really be a CEO? Mr. Speaker, we have issues that have come out very clearly also from our presentation by our members. And I was a bit surprised and taken aback that we seem not to know that we have three arms of government, that we have the executive, legislature, and judiciary, that we as members of parliament have a role to oversight the executive. And then we hear people pointing out that on the other side, you have done a good job, the other side, and yet we are all supposed to oversight this government. Can we all rise up to the occasion and do the work that we are supposed to do, or why the people who brought us to this house sent us here to oversight the executive? We are not apologists for the government. Mr. Speaker, there is something that has come out skewed.
Honorable Wamboka.
Skewed.
Where have you come from? Yeah, do the right thing.
Mr. Speaker.
No, just do the right thing.
Mr. Speaker, can you consult silently, please? Mr. Speaker, skewed ethnic diversity.
Speaker was not consulting. Speaker was keeping order in the house.
Mr. Speaker, we have an issue here that has been raised of skewed ethnic diversity. Mr. Speaker, there is an organization that is called NCIC, National Cohesion and Integration Commission, that was set up after the 2010 elections and the new constitution. Mr. Speaker, must we repeat ourselves here all the time about ethnicity? There are reports that have been generated by this commission. Why can't we make use of this commission so that there is balance, there is fairness, and it is not about anybody's shareholding company? Let us be clear about that. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the President himself told us that a good number of those in positions of leadership are clueless and they have no idea on what they are doing. Let these people be relieved of their duties and give qualified Kenyans to do this work. I support. Thank you.
Honorable Ibo Bara, you will have 4 minutes. The next time this particular motion is enlisted in the order paper, and that will be tomorrow. Honorable members, the time, order honorable members. Honorable Wamboka, there is great interest in your motion. We will speak or request the House Business Committee to schedule it for conclusion tomorrow, and hopefully you will be available to just do so. It is not permitted within the standing orders that we curtail debate when members are still seeking to speak. So, honorable members, the time being 7 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Wednesday, 9th August 2023 at 9:30 a.m.